Greetings, wrestling fans, and welcome to Fannin's Flashbacks, the podcast that nobody asked for, but I'm going to give it to you anyway. This podcast is going to cover tales from IWA Mid-South during my 12 years with the company, and it will be a part of the VNMVS Podcast Network. This podcast is intended for mature audiences only due to the foul language and graphic details about deathmatch wrestling that it will contain. This will be your backstage pass to get a peek behind the curtain at what led to the downfall of the craziest independent wrestling promotion of the late 1990s, early 2000s. And without any further ado, Nick Maniwa, hit the music. Greetings, wrestling fans, and welcome to episode 32 of Fannin's Flashbacks. It's the podcast nobody asked for, but I decided to give it to you anyway. These are tales from IWA Mid-South during my time there from 1997 to 2009, and today we'll go a little beyond that because of who the guest is. I am joined today by a man that was my broadcast partner for the end of my IWA run, and a man that I owe an apology to for making his job harder. I am joined by Michael Z. Michael, I apologize to you for phoning it in at the end of my run and not giving you my best effort. I owe that same apology to the fans. I owe it to Dingo. People that were still actually following the product at that time deserved for me to not bring my personal issues and dislike of being at the shows and not wanting to be around anymore. I shouldn't have let that affect the quality of my work that I was doing at that point. So my apologies, sir, and I hope you're doing well this evening.
Hey, fully accepted. Like I said, there's no need to apologize, and that's exactly how everyone should know that it means it's real coming from you, Jim. So I appreciate that. Yes, it is indeed me, Michael Z, ring announcing, commentary. Allegedly, I was the commissioner for a very small point of time. And I know I don't have a lot of time on camera, but I used to have hair. It's legitimately me. Unlike this illegitimate, as we found out.
That's quite the anomaly there on your T-shirt.
It doesn't exist. 2009 TPI does not exist.
But that might be the only surviving shirt of that event that got canceled. We'll get into that timeline in a little bit, but we always start off the podcast just by getting to know the guest a little and letting the guest tell us, how did you become a wrestling fan? Was this something that you found it young? Did you find it late in life? Everybody's a little bit different.
Yeah, I was young, and I hope I look younger than I actually am. So the long end of the story that I found out later is my grandparents, one of their first dates, they actually went to a wrestling show down in the South. It was the Welches, Roy and Lester Welch, which is the older generation of family of Robert Fuller, Colonel Rob Parker. Okay. They actually went to one of his shows and maybe went sporadically over time. So, but my first wrestling experience, it's the week of Thanksgiving 1991. My mom's looking through the newspaper. Google what a newspaper is. And she sees an ad for Survivor Series 1991 because it's held at Joe Louis Arena near Detroit. We're living in Michigan. And she talks to me. She's like, well, we can't go to the show, but, do you want to watch this wrestling thing on pay-per-view, which is $30 at the time. But for whatever reason, I was like, yeah, let's go see that. I had Undertaker and Hulk Hogan right there on the picture. And so we order the pay-per-view, and it's our first time with a pay-per-view box. It's actually just my dad and I at that point. And we're scrambling around right at 8 o'clock to try to find it. And we get in a little late. So the first image that I see from Survivor Series 1991 is Macho Man tied up in the ropes and Jake the Snake Roberts Cobra come in and latch on to his skin with the blood and everything. that's legitimately the first thing I've seen in pro wrestling, and hooked ever since. Even
Okay.
during the terrible 1995 era, where I'm just like looking around the school, like no one's into this thing, and I don't know why they wouldn't be interested in Mabel and TL Hopper. And then, but when the Attitude Era kicks, you're walking around school and someone's like, "Suck it," and I'm just like, "That's our thing. What are you doing? Is this? People know this now." And so it was just like such a mind blow that people were into wrestling again at that point, and like Mania '98 hits, and I remember I'm a freshman, but there was like a guy who's just a year older than me sitting back talking about it. He's got a whole group of people just listening to him gush over Mania '98. Said it was the greatest night of his life, and we're just all watching it on pay-per-view at our own homes. Uh, so yeah, I stuck with it through some rough times. Got there when it became cool, and been there ever since through the thick and thin.
Okay, so that first experience, the 91 Survivor Series,
Yeah.
is that when Flair slid the chair into the ring and Undertaker did the tombstone, and then
Yep.
what they came back with that stupid Tuesday in Texas
Tuesday
or
in
whatever
Texas.
right after
And
that. And
again, somehow I convinced my parents, can we spend 20 more dollars? Because it was only
oh wow.
$20. That one was $20 because it was, their experimental show. It was like basically the first in your house.
Yes, yes,
And
okay, yeah.
I got the $20 pay-per-view the next day, and I was off to the races. Eventually caught some WCW. I really liked that as well. Eventually get some pay-per-views, and then ECW '97, saw as much of that as I could.
Okay. So
My first glimpses of Ian Rotten.
but it's kind of cool that the very first show that you saw ended up being a pay-per-view,
Yeah,
and
not the
that you're
free
and that
TV show.
and that your parents went ahead and sprung the dough for that one. 'Cause the first live pay-per-view that I got to watch as it was, watch it live as it was happening was the Chi-Town Rumble where Steamboat beat Flair for the title.
There you
and
go.
and it broke my heart that I couldn't go to it since it was in
Yeah.
Chicago. Um, but I had gotten to go to a one house show, and it was right after WrestleMania 3, and I got my dad to actually go ahead and do it, and my mom and dad took me up there to the Rosemont Horizon to watch Steamboat Savage in a cage in a rematch for the IC title right after WrestleMania. But with my dad being in a wheelchair, it was very hard for him to get anywhere. But they called because I kept hounding that was something that I wanted to do, and so they called and found out that there was like a handicap section that we would be able to get some seats in, and we'd be able to sit next to him in his wheelchair. And so it ended up like we ended up being right over the entranceway where the wrestlers would walk out. So it ended up being fairly nice seats
Yeah.
for that house show. And but we had gotten the satellite dish right before Chi-Town Rumble, and he was like, we can't go and be there, but I'll start buying the pay-per-views. So we started getting those NWA WCW pay-per-views every month at that point,
Yeah.
and then did not watch a WWF pay-per-view live until Rumble 92. So you beat me to a WWF pay-per-view by a couple of months there.
Yeah.
But except for about 5, 6 months in '84, WWF was never my preferred style. I always liked the other stuff that was on TV
Hmm.
and things. So,
I think we was lucky to have uh, a wide palette of different wrestlings. I remember watching Global on ESPN
yes,
when I
every single
get home
day,
from
come home from
school.
school and turn it on. That was, you know, hard to believe that I ended up seeing Bull Payne on there and Ian Rotten
Yeah,
and
Bull. Yep.
guys that we end up working with. And
I got oh,
we're
so
watching them on Global, you know.
that's my first exposure to Ian Rotten was Global. That's right. Okay. Not
Not
the
not a
ECW.
not a long or successful run, but they did
Yeah.
have it did have a little bit there on Global, and so that's cool. So you start off as a wrestling fan that way.
Yeah.
At any point as you're like going through this time period, was there thoughts in your head that it was something that you were going to end up getting involved in? So I've mentioned on here numerous times, the thought never crossed my mind. Never
Yeah.
thought that, never thought it was even an option, that there was a way that it ever could have happened. And so I never spent any amount of time thinking, oh, I got to start going towards
Hmm.
making sure I can end up into the wrestling business and then just fall ass backwards into it um, down the road. But was it something that you were making plans for and trying to figure out a way, or
I
were
think
you
it was
like,
a yeah. I think it was along the same lines. Like I wasn't an athletic kid, so I never had the, dream that I'd get in the ring type thing. But I always felt creative. I remember, basically fantasy booking a lot of stuff. Honestly, like Tony Khan did, where you're like fantasy booking different wrestling, your whole promotion, and you're writing down the results of everything, and really trying to do it like a bit storyline based, as episodic as you can. Um, but so out of high school, I went to a broadcasting school for television and radio, and that's my segue into wrestling. I wasn't looking for any wrestling schools, but the age of Live Journal, my friend, when Live Journal was the
yes,
social media, and I don't know how I got there. I might have been like looking at Chris Heroes first and then discovering Jimmy Jacobs, which I watched Jimmy on the CBS affiliate actually had some like Michigan wrestling, and there was a match with him and Chris Sabin. And so even back there in 2005, I was like, oh, these guys are awesome. And somehow I found out Jimmy Jacobs lived in Kalamazoo, the same city I lived in. So I'm now subscribe to his live journal, and he just makes a little post. He's like, hey, my friend Kevin Harvey is doing a show in Climax this May, Memorial Day 2005, and if you want to be a guest ring announcer on this show, go to his live journal link here, and you fill out this email quiz, and top score gets a spot. So I do that. And I believe I was the only entrant, by the way, but still,
you were a high score.
I was the high scorer. I think I swept the thing. And Kevin Harvey called me one day, almost made me late for work. But, as a wrestling fan, you're just like, someone in wrestling's talking to me. I'll push it as much as I can. So it was Memorial Day 2005. I drive out to Climax, and this is just an outdoor show. It's not part of any sort of regular promotion. It was just like a thing for him, but it piggybacked off of what IWA was running that weekend. So not only did Jimmy Jacobs come, but we had Chris Hero, we had Claudio, we had Colt Cabana, Eddie Kingston, and Bryce Remsburg all came in for the show. And I believe Josh Abercrombie was wrestling for IWA at the time, but either way, he was close with all of them, so he was on the show too. And so I was like a partial ring announcer. I did like a couple matches there for that
Okay.
show, but that got me connected to some people. Um, and it really was Josh Abercrombie, Josh Raymond. I talked to him a little bit, added him on probably Instant Messenger or something, and found out he's also living there in Kazoo with Jimmy. And we went out to eat one night at the famous chicken finger night, and he was talking about, yeah, Josh Raymond is like, I'd really love to run my own wrestling show. I just want to have TV, as long as like, even if it's public access, like that's cool. It's a little something. I'm like, bro, I went to school for not only for radio, but for video editing, television, all that stuff. Like I could film it, I could edit it. We can go to these public access stations and drop them off and try to start building something for you. So that's what happened there. We filmed it in September of that year, and by March we were rolling. It didn't last too long because it was a bit of a grind to edit a 30-minute show every week back at those times. Um, but that was like my real in. So I got to start traveling with him, going to different towns, coming to IWA Mid South. I'm sure they were uh, my big conduit to finding IWA, and also at that time because I kind of met Jimmy and Jake and Josh would vouch for me. Jimmy calls me up and he says, "Hey man, I'm floundering at Ring of Honor. I've got this idea, but I got Lacey managing me and BJ, and but I'm like a storyline guy. I'm not really a wrestler like the rest of the Ring of Honor guys. I want to like fall in love with her and write a song, do a music video, make it very like John Hughes 80s, romantic comedy inspired. And I know you do film stuff, so like you can do that for me." I said, "Absolutely." So I lucked into filming and producing the Ballad of Lacey with him. And this was one of the like early adaptations of YouTube. There wasn't a lot of wrestling on there, but we put that on there and we
So
sent it
what's the
to.
time frame on this?
That's actually around. Well, so that's we filmed it in January of 2006, but Gabe sat on it. Gabe Sapolsky, he sat on the video for too long. So it went past Valentine's Day. But like early March, he says he watched it and he texts Jimmy. He's like, "Yeah, I just saw the Ballad of Lacey. This is the greatest thing I've ever seen in my life. And you're booked for the next 6 shows or whatever." So Jacobs called me and thanked me for that. And that was another in right there, to where eventually down the line he did two more music videos with the Victory of Love and Kiss to Kill. That's all led to Age of the Fall. So I had I had a more powerful ally at that point. Jacobs is just one of my best friends to this day.
Okay, well, we'll stop here, and I'm going to interject myself with a few
Of
things here.
course.
So, um, I am going if I'd have known this timeline, and haven't watched any of this stuff, so if I'd have known this timeline when when Maniwa sprung Jimmy Jacobs on me, it would have been another thing for us to argue about here, because that sounds an awful lot like the angle that I did with Mickey the year before in 2005, where
Uh,
it's the wooing of Mickey Knuckles, and I'm reading her poetry and singing her songs and doing whatever, but I didn't have a videographer to put something like that together for me. um I think I'm gonna claim inspiration for the stuff that if he's gonna, sounds an awful lot like what I did with Mickey, is all I'm gonna say. And it's not like he can claim that he didn't see any of that, because he's on all those shows.
he's on.
He's
Well,
on
now
all
you
those
can get a
damn
part.
shows,
You can get a part two with Jimmy.
and okay. And then I'll say this about that music video, the Ballad of Late whatever. That is the only thing that I've ever seen of Ring of Honor more than a 2-second clip, because Prophet of Ash put it onto the episode on IWTV of the Jimmy, and I immediately like texted him and said, "What the fuck was that bullshit that I just watched? What the fuck was that?" And he was like,
You don't want to
"That
see candle wax coming down his body with the nipple rings and everything.
no, no." I
No.
was like, "What
Mm-mm.
in the hell did I just watch?" And so that's, to this day, that is the longest amount of Ring of Honor anything that I've ever seen in my entire life. And um, unless miracles happen and somebody pays off like my mortgage and my
Yeah.
credit card bills, it will, till the day I die, that'll be the longest amount of Ring of Honor that I ever watch in my life.
But
Uh,
like the critics say, Ring of Honor doesn't do storylines. No, not at all.
I, I couldn't tell you what they do, other than piss me off. I couldn't tell you.
Fair
Um,
enough.
so I don't think I've told the story on the podcast, so I'll go ahead and tell it now.
Do
I don't
it.
even know what show it was. It was in Chicago Ridge. I believe it had Steamboat and Mick Foley on it,
Hmm.
and it was a little before um, the 8-man tag strong style comedy match. So it
Classic.
somewhere Octoberish 2004, somewhere before that.
Hmm.
Um, Ian and Mickey dragged me to this Ring of Honor show so we could flyer um, Gabe or whatever his name was, uh, gives permission to Ian to go and for us to come and hand out these flyers inside the show, like be in there as they're coming in, hand out the
Yeah.
flyers, whatever. So because Foley and Steamboat are there, that first house show that I ever went to, and with Steamboat versus Savage, I still had the program that I got that night that had Steamboat on the cover holding up the newly won Intercontinental title right after the WrestleMania match. So I was like, okay, well, I want no part of being there, but I'll go just so I can get Steamboat to autograph this program. I think that would be pretty cool. So I bring this program. Ian brings like 3 totes worth of, Mick Foley and Ricky Steamboat action, like anything he could find to try to get signed. And we go into the building, and, of course, it's super early. Everybody's ramming around and, doing their little workouts in the ring pre-show. Ian and Mickey mill about, and I'm not a social butterfly, so I plop down in a seat. I guess it was like in the concession area, and they had like some high boy tables set
Hmm.
up or whatever. So I just had a seat at one of the tables, and I'm sitting there with like the totes of shit that Ian brought in, and like all the IWA guys are coming up to me and talking to me, and shaking my hand. We're chatting, and I see Gabe like flag down a security guy and call him over. So the security guy goes over and talks to Gabe, and I'm watching, and the guy comes over and he's like, "Who are you?" I
Very
said,
nice.
"I'm Jim Fannin. Who are you here with?" Ian Rotten and Mickey Knuckles, co-owner of IWA. We're here to flyer and just hang out. He was like, "Okay, I'll be right back." And so then he goes over and he talks to Gabe, and I can see him saying, who knows what he told him, but I know what I told him.
Right.
So then, like, Gabe tells him something. He comes back over and he's like, "Okay, you can stay, but you're not allowed in the dressing room. The dressing room's for talent only." And I said, "That's perfectly fine. I have no intention of going into your locker room. I'm sitting right here."
Which is just a gym, by the way.
I'm like, "I'm just sitting right here. No problems." So the guy leaves. Then, like, CM Punk comes up and starts talking to me, and we're chatting. So while Punk's talking with me, Gabe sends the guy over again to tell him, and the guy again says, "Reminder, you're not allowed in the dressing room." And I said, "And again, I have no intentions of going into your precious fucking dressing room. Wouldn't think of it." You know, tell him that he doesn't have to fucking worry about it. I'm
Yeah.
just fucking sitting here. So then he goes back over and, tells him whatever. And then I think it was like Delirious, maybe Seidel, and maybe somebody else from I don't think it was Daisy, but like
Yeah.
Seidel, Delirious, and someone else comes up and starts talking to me. And Gabe sends the fucker over again. And the guy's like, you can't go in the dressing room. And I was like, motherfucker, at no point have I said anything about wanting to go into your goddamn fucking dressing room.
Yeah.
Like, I'm talking to people I know. Just fucking get away from me.
They came to me, you know?
So they came to me. It's not like I'm sitting over here calling everybody over. Hey, can you get me in your fucking dressing room? I don't even want to fucking be here, you know? And so I at that point, after the third time, I stormed over to Ian and I said, you know what? Fuck this motherfucker. And I'm like looking right over a game. I'm like, fuck this motherfucker. I don't even want to be here. And I left. And from that day forward, I have not, will not watch anything Ring of Honor, will not have anything to do with them. Don't give a shit about them. And, I went home and bitched about it on my live journal because you're talking about all these live journals. And
LJ, baby.
Then I get a message from CM Punk. We need to talk. And like, so the next time I see him is the 8-man tag day. And I like pick him up and he was with Tracy Brooks. Was that her name?
Yeah.
From TNA?
Yeah.
So he came in with Tracy. I picked the two of them up at the airport and he's like, we need to talk about what you wrote on your live journal. And I just looked at him and I said, my story is in that live journal. And you know goddamn well that if anybody would have fucking treated you like that at a fucking show you were at, that you would have went scorched earth on him. And he was
That's
like,
true.
And you could just see like this look go like he was like, yeah, I would have. And I was like, yeah, exactly. And then, we did the 8-man tag. And when I came up with the idea of doing the bra spot, when we got back into the back, Punk came up and tapped me on the back and he said, we're cool now. That was awesome. And I was like,
There we
well, that doesn't, I would have been fine either way, but I'm glad that, but yeah, after that, I was like, fuck that. And I know that I'm nobody. And so I know that, okay, you might look at me and not realize who I am or that I'm anybody. But when you've stole 3/4 of our fucking roster, I know you've watched the shows. So I know you've seen me or have at least heard the name. So, after the first time you're told, that should be good enough for you to, if I say I don't want into your damn locker room, leave it at that, but whatever. That's here nor there. So
it was a good one to hear. Tracy Brooks married and has kids with Frankie Kazarian. You know that?
I
Okay.
no idea. That's well, good for him. Good
They're
for
happy.
him.
They are happy. Yeah.
Good for him. Glad to see that she's evidently doing well herself. She was always kind when she came in, and I don't think I've ever met Kazarian, but good information. So you had mentioned to me that you had past podcasting experience before you got into IWA. Was that more or less the going to the school for radio and TV, or was there something else that you had done podcast wise?
Yeah, and I like to say without any like real factual, studying of it, but one of the earlier wrestling podcasts that was involved in that, just guys I knew on, some message board, but because they knew I had the radio experience, thought I'd be good to have on there. But the main guy of that, uh, listeners here may know his name is William Washington. He actually works now backstage for AEW. So he works tight with Tony Khan. And so it's a crazy story now that like he's he's very much leapfrogged me in status in wrestling, but as far as like who I know in professional wrestling, the first person I now know is Will, who was actually one of the later people to get in. But there was we usually recorded on Saturdays, and I remember I went to one of the IWA shows with Josh and just had my little recorder and recorded things with various people. I remember Larry Sweeney was one of them, and he was, super nice, not knowing me at all, but he saw Josh, he's like, yeah, that's my guy. Talk to him, and Sweeney just talking up a storm during whichever Midlow event this was, Midlothian, or as Tracy Smothers said it, and it's forever burned into my head, Middle Lothian.
Middle
Never got
Lothian.
to Middle Lothian in his voice.
Was that part of Middle Earth Hobbits Lord of the Rings stuff there?
Sure, it's an extension there. Tracy knows best. Wild-eyed Southern boy. So I never actually got to work at Midlothian, but I did get to attend some events there, going up with Josh and whoever it would be. And one thing I hold dear of Josh is like, acclimating me to wrestling. He said, I'm getting you in free, so at least, move some chairs during teardown. And that, no, but that's something that people, the guys who want to wrestle and want to be on shows, like, won't even bother doing these days.
Right.
That's something learned right at the beginning. Like, okay, you want to be involved, like everyone works together, whatever you can do to help, even if it's a small thing. Don't be a hanger on, don't be a wallflower, like do a little something. That was good advice from him that I take to this day.
Well, and I've told the story on the podcast before with when badass Billy Gunn was coming in. He would carry out the ring and do the work of like three people, because he would carry two ring posts at a time. He would just bend out and haul them up over the shoulder and walk right up, and the full piece of wood that he'd like flip it over with the hit, and it would take 3 to 4 guys to carry one set out to the. He would just heave it up and carry one out by himself. And like when he would be on a show, we'd be out of the building 50% quicker because he was doing a hell of a lot more than anybody else. And and like if Billy Gunn can do it, then anybody can. Just.
And one of the Midlow shows that I saw was the first time Chuck Taylor won the world title from Toby Klein, and I remember kind of chuckling. I'm not trying to knock him here, but I was kind of chuckling because the new world champion was doing tear down of the ring. But hey, he had the ethic, and he's where he is now too, which is awesome.
Yeah. So many of the guys went on to much bigger and better things that we were around back then, and some of them, gotta say, surprising to me from how far they came from them. And I think might have been Nick on here at one time, like brought up Ricochet and was just like, he was like 105 pounds, so small when he started with us, and like a 20-mile-an-hour wind would knock him over, and then he's like a huge name in the business now.
And I mean, he's bulked up. He's a phenomenal wrestler. Like he is like really like my favorite style of wrestler. Like he and Ospreay type guys. And that's the thing, is people will always knock them. They're just this one style, but like, no, those types of wrestlers really can do anything. And I know Ricochet spent a lot of time in Japan with like your Dragon Gate and so forth, learning different styles to be so versatile. And even now in AEW, he does a lot of comedy. And especially back when we first saw him, you think like, this guy's got no personality, no talking skills, no charisma, but he can do that double moonsault. That's dope. But man, the dude can do it all now. I saw him earlier this year. Like, yeah, it's great how like the eye for talent that you guys had for IWA Mid-South is just second to none. Like you said, like not even just the ones that were going on to Ring of Honor, but guys go to WWE and TNA and now in AEW. Like so many of them came from IWA, and we were lucky enough to meet them and have them remember us to this day.
Yeah, I think it's pre your time. I think it was a heavier amount of those guys went on.
Yeah.
You had just missed that time for like, I think 2004, 2005 was like a switch, almost a complete overhaul of the roster at that point.
And you had to do that to survive, because talent pool depleted. You had to find new
Right, because
people.
everybody had moved on
Poached.
to bigger, poached and taken, and good for them. And that's what we were there for, was to
Yeah.
launch them to bigger and better things. So great that it happened for them.
And that's what I like to do with my wrestling now. Like I'll tell my lock if I'm ever part of a show that I have a lot of my hands and my fingers in them, you know, I'm bringing the roster together, and I tell these guys every time, it's like, I want you to make so much money, I never see you again. Whether it happens for me or not, I don't care. Like I want everyone to see you for as good as I see you.
and it would
And I
just be and it would just be nice that if you make $10 bajillion later, that throw a few bucks our way. Yeah.
cut me a little something. Nah, nah.
Yeah, little something, little something.
Yeah.
But yeah. So you had the podcast, your previous podcasting. I've talked on here where me and Rich Wayne, before I started this, we had our own podcast of Seinfeld friends and wrestling. Um,
Okay.
we would pick one week and we would talk about that week's episode of Seinfeld and then the episode of Friends from that week, and then whatever wrestling, Nitro, Raw, if there was IWA that week, and we just talk it all, put it all together. It was three things that we enjoyed,
Mm-hmm.
and we were about the only two people that enjoyed all three of those things at the same time, because we had no listenership, until I would, every episode would end with me doing a rant about something, and like a few people would listen to the rant, and then that was it. And we were like, oh, who would have thought that the crossover between Seinfeld, Friends, and wrestling is not,
Mm-hmm.
that Venn diagram is not one circle. Let me tell you, not one circle at all. It's almost, Friends and Seinfeld had a lot of overlap, of course, but
Yeah.
it didn't touch the wrestling circle hardly at all.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Too many times there. So
No, that's a great thing. Wrestling at its core brings all of us together, but that there's different things. I was hanging out with a group of guys and we were talking about Survivor and different reality shows like The Traders and stuff. So it's a great launching pad onto other things to find like a deeper connection with people, even outside of pop culture. If it's some kind of theological belief, especially with Jimmy Jacobs. You finding some common ground with people is super cool, and wrestling brings that together for us.
yeah. So you said your debut of doing something in
Mm-hmm.
IWA was Simply the Best Eight, which was in 2007,
Yes.
almost the very end of 2007. But you were like talking about
Yeah.
coming to shows. So you must have been coming to shows for like a full year, over a year.
At least
Probably.
sporadically, yeah. But at
Okay.
that point, so by 2007, I've done my own local indie wrestling and such. And I remember came in with Josh on that one, and turned out that we needed more referees than just PJ Drummond and whoever else was there. And honestly, I had not really refereed before, but PJ gave me, gave me insight. Josh did as well. Ian trusted me to go in and do three matches. They were two or three matches, and they weren't like, you know, not very convoluted ones. I know I did Jack Thriller, Brian Skyline, which were two guys I knew. Michael Elgin, who I knew very well. Drake Younger, who was at least nice. I don't know if I knew him at the time. I might have done Josh's match with Jason Hades. But then it comes to the main event is Mickey Knuckles versus Awesome Kong. And in order to do a schmaz finish, they had all three referees get bumped on that night. So I'm pretty sure
Mm.
PJ, like, I believe PJ was the main ref, but either way, I get in there at some point. Supposed to take a errant kick from Mickey, which probably looked horrible, but I did as as told to fall out of the ring. And then, of course, Ian's talking for like 15 minutes after the match, and I don't know what I'm supposed to do, so I'm just laying there groggy on the floor, and like, oh, what am
Yeah.
I type thing. But it was a fun, hey, it showed throw them in the fire, get in there, do something just to help out. Um, and then that led to the very next show, which is a rotten farewell, which was when Ian was retiring. And I don't even know who I'm replacing at this point, but I remember vividly I'm the ring announcer on that show, and still
Yeah,
a big show to do.
who yeah, referees and ring announcers, it was always like whoever happens to be there that he doesn't have
Mm-hmm.
to pay, you
Yeah,
know.
yeah,
Um all hands on deck at that, a lot of shows, I do the ring announcing and do the commentary, and some of it I
yeah.
would be the
I might
only
have just let you
commentator,
off. I might
you
have just
know.
let you off the hook that night, to be
Yeah,
honest.
I'm not sure. Yeah, because it was always, you know, Toolman Taylor, or just so many different people over the years that would grab the, and he would just grab whoever and throw them out there. So by the sounds
But
of it, like you weren't training to be a ref or anything. You were just the guy that was there
yeah,
and willing to do it. So hey, you're a referee now.
yep. And if that gave me a good impression to start ring announcing, I was down for it. Like I mentioned, Kevin Harvey was like my first connection, and there's like the train of like Kevin Harvey, Joey Eastman, Dave Prazak, and I thought very highly of all those guys. So to be even like remotely associated with them meant a lot to me. And I always felt, talk to Dave and Joey as much as I could to learn things. And I came into that rotten farewell ready. I had my nice suit. I made my notes. I didn't read a single note card. I'm pretty sure we can check the video there. I was always big on like try to not read off your note cards. It's still
Right.
to this day my pet peeve of people standing in the ring. But and here's the worst part. I got their paper, and they're like, "Here it is, Too Cold Scorpio." I'm like, "Motherfucker, you don't know Too Cold Scorpio?" Or like
Right.
legit, you will see that to this day. People so attached to these cards with like, it's just shit you got to remember. It's a
Right.
hometown, it's a nickname, and their name. And especially if you know who the fuck they are, like you don't need to look at the sheet.
Well, I think I told the story on the Mark Wolf when I had Mark Wolf on here. I told the story because when I was doing the ring announcing in the Blue Barn Charlestown days,
Mm-hmm.
generally what would happen is, you know, I'd have to like run from the ring. I'd do the intros, then I'd have to run out of the ring into the dressing room, climb the ladder to get up into the rafters
Yeah.
to then get over to the commentary booth and get onto commentary. Um, so it was a back and forth kind of deal. And like normally the wrestler would come into the ring, the music would start to die down a little bit, and I'd just be like, and if I wasn't sure of your intro, I'd be like,
Mm-hmm.
where do you want to be billed from, and do you want to wait?
Yeah.
And so then they would just tell me, and then it's right there, and I'd say it, you
Yeah.
know. Um, but it was CM Punk versus Mark Wolf versus Mitch Ryder, and it was Mitch's first night in.
Okay.
So I didn't know anything about Mitch Ryder other than his name was Mitch Ryder.
Yeah.
Okay. And like they just start going at it almost as soon as they all three of them are in IWA. We would do the intro after everybody. Like every company's a little different. I know sometimes they'll before a guy will come out, they'll do the intro and just intro one guy at a time, like before
Mm-hmm.
they even come out. I've seen where they'll wait for the first guy to get in the ring, they'll intro him, and then wait for the second guy to get in the ring and intro him.
Yeah.
We would wait for everybody to get into the ring, and then everybody would be introed as
Yeah.
one thing, you know?
Ian was big on those Japan entrances, like even for the most undercard fucking match that you'll ever see, like still gets the same announcement as the main event title
Right.
match. And I remember
And
one time, and just a few shows later, it was like a 10-man tag, 5-on-5, and it was like, remember your shit.
right, right. But like as soon as all three of them are in the ring, they're at it. So I'm
Yeah.
like running for my life to get out of the way. And I'm like, okay, I know Mark Wolf, I know CM Punk. And then I get to Mitch Ryder and I say, I don't know how much he weighs. I don't know where he's from, but he's Mitch Ryder. And then I'm up the ladder and out on the commentary. And
Yeah.
Mitch Ryder is fucking pissed,
Of all the
pissed
things they're mad
beyond
about that.
belief.
Yeah, yeah.
And he, after the show, he comes and finds me and he's like, why did you fucking bury me on the microphone? And I'm like, dude, I had none of your info. And he's like, why didn't you ask for it? And I said, I always ask in the ring. And you guys went right at it. I didn't have a chance to get your stuff. And
Hmm.
he's like, you buried me. You buried me to these people. And I'm like, they got your name. You
Yeah,
know,
man.
I at that time I was like, I was burying JC Bailey. I was burying Simon Says because like whoever they would wrestle, I would give them the Apollo, I'd give their opponent the Apollo
Yeah.
Creed 27 nicknames, every podunk little pissant title that I knew they ever held from any
Hmm.
promotion anywhere. And I'd build them up and then I go, and their opponent JC Bailey and be out of
Heck
the ring. Or
yes.
their opponent just Simon Said. I was like, I didn't do that to you. I like at least attempted, it's like I did not bury you. And then like somebody told him, that I was Ian's right hand guy. And so he just started like Mitch Ryder just started calling me FO. And he'd be like, whatever, FO, whatever, FO. And I knew he was telling me to fuck off every time he did it. Like one time somebody was like, what's that mean, Mitch? And he's like, front office, front office. It's
Of
FO for
course.
front
Yeah, yeah.
office. Yes,
Right
yes, yes.
on.
I'm like, okay, Mitch. All right. I know what you're doing here. I know what you're
Well, in regards to my rant there, none of it was meant as a burial of you. Obviously, you had a lot going on those days,
doing.
and that is the truth too. A lot of these events kind of come together last minute. So, a lot of times it is very hard to get that information. But yeah, there's people out there who should be spending a lot more time. Just like it's your job. Again, like
Well,
us, even a security person, like don't I my mentality is just like don't agree to the job if you're not going to try to do it.
and like I would get crucified on the message boards. Like if I was in a polo shirt and khakis,
Oh
I
boy.
would get crucified that I'm not taking it serious. I'm not dressed for the part, and that a ring announcer should, be in a suit, whatever. And so then I'm like, these fucking warehouses with no air conditioning
Oh
are
my
like
God,
120
brother.
degrees, and I'm
Yeah.
fat. I'm hot all the damn time. And I was like, all right, whatever. So then I started wearing the suits to shut people up.
Hmm.
And now I look and you got ring announcers and track suits and everything else now. And I'm like sitting there going, man, back in my day, we
I
couldn't
was
get
just
away
gonna
with that.
say, I was gonna say, like, not as a burial because NLJ from GCW is amazing, but he's just got like throwback wrestling shirts. He's wearing like a Bret Hart or a Razor
Right.
Ramon shirt
I
on
was
GCW, where those people have zero association, but he's good as a shit. So hey,
uh, well, I guess it's the world has changed. The
yeah.
world has definitely changed.
Hmm.
Um, Now, out of the ring announcing and the refereeing, which one did you like? Which one did you like better? Which one did you think you did? Did you think you did the ring announcing better
Oh, a thousand
just
percent.
because you had the speaking background?
A thousand percent. Like refereeing is not for me. Credit to the PJ Drummonds and Bryce Remsburgs and Brian Gories who are like talented and very valuable as referees. Like credit to them. Wasn't
Yeah,
my thing.
there was multiple times that I ended up having to ref over the years, not even
Mhm.
as like a special guest ref, just I'm out there because there's nobody else, right?
Because there's no one
And
else.
and like a couple of the times I'd be out there refing and the guys as a rib on me would just do like the fish out of water spots just so I'm like except they would do it like slower. So like I'd get up thinking they were done and then they
Mhm.
oh back down. Oh,
They're
okay, now
that bad.
back down. And I'm like, you sons of bitches. I was like, I could not stand. I was not anywhere near in shape enough to be able to do the refereeing and
You
like
should have just
trying to
told
stay
every.
out of the way of the camera, especially
Oh
if there's like,
yeah.
trying to stay out of the way of their spots because you don't know everything that they're running and you're like you think you're in an area that's and then they're reversing and coming and they're like get out of the
Mm.
way and I'm like well fuck where the hell am I supposed to be? I don't know.
Well, when you're reincarnated, Jim, and you're thrown in there again as a referee at the last minute, just tell everyone you went to the Bronco Lubitsch
Oh
school
my god,
of
yes.
refereeing, and you're just standing there.
I was a little better than that. I was a little better than
Yeah,
Bronco Lubitsch, but not
but
by
this time you
much.
can do it. This
Not
time you
by
can do
much.
that.
Not by much. But
Go that route.
at that point, all right.
Yeah, and
So
I never had an urge to be on camera either. So like ring announcing, you're just on for a little bit, and then commentary heard throughout the night, very barely seen. I'm like, that's cool for me, man. That's fine.
yeah, I've got a face for radio, so commentary is probably a little better of where I belong, just so people
Hmm.
don't have to look at me. But um, I think I'm a little bit better at getting people to hate me and wish death upon me while I'm out there doing my stuff. So I got to be in front of the people a little bit. But
Exactly. Yep.
uh, so how many shows did you do the ring announcing? Was it just the Rotten Farewell, or did you like get a run as a ring announcer at that point, or did it stay musical chairs?
That's a
Because I
run
don't.
there, actually. Yeah,
Okay,
from Rotten Farewell, and then we go to the 500th show, which was a big one. The first show of 2008, and then there was a double shot in April, which is kind of the April blood showers, and then a triple shot right at the beginning of May. And like, yeah, as long as I was making the events, and I'm pretty sure I was like 95% there. I was the ring announcer from that point, unless there's a actually no, even if so there were some. This is a little later. That sometimes Smart Mark didn't even come to the events, so I brought my camera and I would film, and I would also ring announce just from right behind the camera, which is something I do to this day for some events. Uh,
nice.
but so I was, yeah, like I don't recall any point of someone taking over for me as ring announcer. It's just if I wasn't there.
Okay, and but you eventually do get onto commentary uh,
Hmm.
in May with a triple shot weekend. How did you get that role? And was it something that you were wanting at that point, or was it just more heaped at you because you're there and you're the right price?
I did always want to do it. You know, commentary was kind of the one of the first things I did in wrestling, and I took it very seriously. So the story, which maybe our IWA Mid South fans will appreciate, is that Jacobs was watching either the 500th show or the April events, watching the DVDs from Smart Mark and listening to the commentary of Ben Jordan and Tomaselli's Brandon or Vito. And just he's sitting there, he's like, bro, what is this shit? I'm fucking bleeding here. I got barbed wire in my ass, and these guys are just fucking goofing off and talking about MySpace and gear every fucking other sentence. And I do believe he's not the only person who felt that way about it. And that was, yeah, I'm not here to bury Ben Jordan and Tomaselli's about it, but take your job seriously, add to the product. I know for sure there was a point of time where Smart Mark Video had it. You could get an IWA Mid South show and watch it without the commentary. And so at some point after watching those tapes, he gave Ian a call, and I knew going into the May weekend that I was ring announcing and like thrown into the fire to do commentary. But no, I was very glad with that, and I did my research as much as I could. I knew a good bit of Mid South, but we didn't have the power of cagematch.net back then, but I did have the
Right.
power of Wikipedia. Go look up past results, or even just scroll through the Smart Mark video library and figure out who's winning these matches, who's got these appearances, and I did everything I could to be an asset there. And luckily I was the main. I'd say I was the main chair. Sometimes I had a rote. Yeah, obviously we worked together a lot. I really liked having a rotating second chair, just personally, because shows do get monotonous. You see the same spot, you see the same, just the thing you're talking
Yeah.
about, a guy fighting through adversity, and he's got this match has championship implications, whatever it may be. So at least if you have a second person that switches off every once in a while, you get a revamp of the energy. So I really liked
Right.
that, and that gave me a chance to, knowing that I wasn't stuck with any one person, I could go in the locker room and talk to an Eddie Kingston. And I had Tracy Smothers on there. I had the late, great Christian Abel, who obviously didn't make big strides in wrestling before he passed, but he was someone I loved, and I loved his
I didn't
charisma.
even know that he had passed.
Yeah. Yeah. He passed away probably about a decade ago now.
Wow.
Um,
Okay.
yeah, but having different people, again, of all different fame levels. Even actually, the first show I'm doing, or the first weekend, the last night is Volcano Girls 2. And Daphne joined me for commentary.
Nice.
And, not to go around the locker room there, but it's like I grew up watching Daphne. I was in love with her, and it was fantastic to just
And she
share a
was so
match or two.
nice. She
Yeah,
was
she
so
that was the
nice.
thing. She was so nice. But just to have her for like a match or two on commentary and say that I was able to do it with her, to have a match calling commentary with her too, means a lot when the people are gone.
Yeah. And you talked about the amount of time you put into getting ready, and the only other the only other person I did commentary with that put in that kind of effort and research was Prazak.
That,
Prazak. So
yeah,
you two were the best. You two were the ones that I enjoyed doing it with the most,
thank you.
because you knew your shit. I was never a name of the holds guy or whatever. You know, I wasn't I wasn't watching, especially at the point that we were working together.
Yeah.
Like, I would say after like 2003, and probably even before that, if it
Hmm.
didn't happen in an IWA ring with me watching it,
Yeah.
I would not see it, because I
Yeah.
wasn't watching anything else. It IWA dominated so much of my thought in trying to think of ways to overcome the gambling and everything else that was dragging us down. The last thing I wanted to do was then go watch other product,
Yeah.
and watch even more. Like it was, I was to the point where I was like, I can't, I don't really want to think about it. Um, so
But
like,
that's where I leaned on you for, past of IWA. If I could talk about
right,
Takara and Ring of Honor experience, or some local show that I maybe saw someone on, but you could talk about with the real crux IWA that our fans buying the DVDs would also
right,
recognize. And so that was huge.
right, and it was a between the two of us, we had everything covered,
Yeah.
you know, kind of deal. And so when it was meshing the way it should have, it was a good team. And like me and Prazak, but then even towards the end there with Prazak, it got to the point where I was more focused on, like, growing up watching Heenan and Bobby and Gorilla. I tried to like turn it into that, where it became
Hmm.
the more uncomfortable and uneasy I could see that I was making Dave, because of how far past the line I was going on shit. Like,
Hmm.
I would just keep turning that dial up until it was like he would be ready to erupt,
Yeah.
and I'd be like, okay, how can I get under his skin today? And can I break him and just make him be like, will you stop it? And I just once I wanted to get damn it, Jim, just stop it. And he
Did you
never gave, I
ever
don't think he ever gave me that though. So
did you ever have this experience? This is literally something off camera, but on commentary that I always noted. When I'm working with Ian loves to turn his head to talk to you, which is like it's because of the issue that I'm going to bring up. It reminds me of my pet peeve when someone's driving. If someone is driving and they keep turning their head to talk to me, I'm like, stop! I can hear you. Please look at the freaking road. But
yeah,
so Ian, we didn't have headsets. We had microphones on some little stand.
right.
So we're both talking into our microphones, and Ian turns his head here. So many times on commentary, I remember, this is Ian facing me, and my arm just reaches over, and I would move the microphone in front of his face, and but he would still never stop. He's always turning to talk to me, and I'm just reaching over, moving the microphone back in front of him.
Well, and yeah, you listen to some of the. I've been watching a little bit of shows on IWTV, and it's like, yeah, it's like, where's the microphone? Where,
Mm-hmm.
why can all of a sudden you just not hear anybody?
Yeah,
And
that was
and
it.
people would be, and people be moving around all the time, unplugging shit, playing with buttons, and turning like, it finally got like for a while there, like Smart Mark would just have tape on everything. Don't touch anything. Don't fuck it. Just leave it as it is. We've got it set. We know the
And
volume's right.
if your phone vibrates on the table, we can hear it.
Get it. It's it was crazy
Yeah.
times back then. But you know, um, and then you were pretty much commentary from then on, right?
Yeah, same deal. I don't remember a show that I would do where I did not do commentary, or honestly even a match. I mean, I may have taken like one or two matches off, just like, okay, I'll get a break because these two people want to talk and we only have two microphones. Fuck it, I get paid the same the same minimal amount whether I do the whole show or 98%. Yeah,
Right.
I got to do commentary for a long time, and that maybe led me to. So, Jim, at this point in my life, I've realized that I am a snob, and I'm very proud to say I'm a snob. So, if I dislike some wrestling or aspect of wrestling, like commentary or filming or different things like movies and music, I'm like, listen, man, that just means I know my stuff and I have standards. Uh,
Right.
but so being able to do so much, it's not once a month. IWA could be 3 4 times a month. So having so much experience and being able to work with people like you and being able to work with other people on commentary, really put us in there and help sharpen the skills. And that was one thing where I never wanted to, get comfortable and start coasting, resting on my laurels, any of that. Got me to a point where we're able to, now give our own advice on things like commentary. Hopefully people follow it so I don't have to mute that shit. And boy, do
Yeah,
I mute some.
there was definitely a long stretch of time there though where the IWA DVDs needed the no commentary option.
Mm-hmm.
But
But like you see
I gotta
the
tell you, it's maybe it's because I did commentary. Maybe it's just the way my brain's wired anymore. Like I get excited every time the Vault releases a new Omni show from Georgia.
yeah.
I get excited, but then I can't get through it because I find myself falling asleep, or now I got these damn, cell phone attached to the hand at all times. And I'm like, okay, well, no, they're not doing anything and there's nobody to talk to fill in the
Mm-hmm.
the downtime. And I'm like, so then I find myself, I'm scrolling on the phone, and then, well, now I'm
You
reading an
missed the whole
article and I
match.
look up and, oh, damn, the match is over. And
Yep.
you can't even hear like the ring announcer half the time say whatever
Mm-hmm.
because the sound system's just like not in tune with the video. And and I'm like sitting there going, damn it, I can't. But the one that they just released, as we're filming this, they just released one from like May of '83, had like Orndorff versus Zabisco, had had a like Arn Anderson in the wildest hat I've ever seen.
I think I Googled that
Teaming
image.
with Matt Bourne with bleach blonde hair, Matt Bourne,
Yeah.
with Paul Ellering as their manager. Like I had no memory of that combo. But they were going against Tommy Rich and might have been Bad Leroy Brown or somebody like that. And
Mm.
that was like, it was an hour and some into the show. And that was like the first time that the crowd really had any kind of reaction the entire night.
Mm-hmm.
What was that match, and then the Zabisco Orndorff match. Those were like the only two that had any. So like the crowd's dead. It's completely quiet. The wrestlers aren't making noise. There's no commentary, and I'm just like, I
Mm-hmm.
can't watch this. But I
Uh,
still, the commentary was so bad on some of the IWA shows that
yeah.
like
And yeah,
I
and
would
then
have
there were
still
some
done the no commentary.
where it was so good. The Joe Necro match from the ECW
Yeah.
arena, like just that commentary adds to it. Or anytime Bryce was on there, I loved hearing from him too. And you guys really did have great people to follow in the footsteps of. And maybe like an early plug here. Uh, I've made a document, a Google Docs, not super long, but it's about commentary. It's like a commentary guide, and I've again, the important thing is that you check with other people to make sure you're not completely batshit and that these are good ideas. But I made a Google Doc that is about commentary, and it's largely broken to two parts. It's like things to do, things to avoid. So if anyone out there is actually serious about commentary, either bettering yourself or getting into it, you see right there on the screen, Michael Z. So Michael Z at gmail.com. If you want to email me there, I will gladly share this with you. I've shared it with people like Joe Dombrowski, who does tons of commentary these days, and he checked off on every point there. It's just a little tool that I would love to pass along to people. I know Chris Hero used to have his own like wrestler's guidebook type thing that even the guys up here in Michigan would check out and share. If I can share that with other people to make wrestling less mutable, please do. Michael Z at gmail.com.
Now, on your document, does it say it's not a hospital, it's a medical facility, and it's not a
No,
championship belt, or it's not a title belt? It's, uh,
no.
he's not a wrestler. He's, a sports entertainer or a superstar. It doesn't have any of that kind of stuff on there.
It has some of that stuff, but definitely not those
Though
examples.
those examples, no.
Not
Okay.
those examples.
Okay. All right.
But there are some. There are some things.
Okay. So we can move on and talk about a couple of incidents that I really haven't brought up on the podcast before. Um, I had Mickey on here and I did not make her go through these items because I didn't want to upset her or give her any PTSD
Yeah.
symptoms, with some of this stuff. And I had Tank on here, and he told me he would talk about it if I wanted to. And I was like, no, I'm not going to put you on the spot and make you answer questions on it. So we can, you had put them down on your list of things that we could talk about. And, I don't have to worry about you having PTSD on it, I don't think. So we
Not
can,
not as much as those involved.
yeah,
More
so
involved.
we can talk a little bit about it, but you had the King and Queen of the Death Matches 2008 on here. Um, that was the outdoor show at the bowling alley, right?
Yep, yep.
In
And we
the
were doing
parking lot
commentary.
of the bowling alley.
doing commentary literally on the roof, had to climb a ladder to get up there. That one I could ring announce from the roof, thank God. I never had to get in the ring, up and down like you. Was that Clarksville, you said?
Yeah, Charlestown, but Clarksville
Charlestown.
was the same too because we were up on top of
Shit.
that thing, and that was even worse than at least Charlestown was sturdy. Like
Yeah.
I always thought I'm gonna cave in on top of that damn shed or whatever the fuck it was inside that warehouse that we were up on, and like it was just makeshift up there at that point.
Mm-hmm.
And I would always just be scared to death that I was going to die trying to get up and down that ladder to
Yeah.
get from the ring and back up there. So
I know I was
Charlestown
less
was a little bit better for it.
I know I was less than a dozen shows in, but I did put my foot down to Ian. It's like, listen, I will ring announce and I'm doing the commentary, but I'm not leaving this one area, especially because it's outdoors and I'm incredibly pasty white and I'm just going to burn myself over the next 2 days calling death matches. So yeah, I got to do it all from one spot up there. But yeah, that was a 2 day event, and that was one actually I did put a lot of studying into, a lot of looking at different statistics for the death matches because I wasn't the guy that went and sought out death match wrestling. I knew my big guys like your Necro and on all that. Um, there would be other wrestlers I didn't know as much about, but I'd like to at least having content when you speak. I know content is like a big word, the big buzzword these days, but it's a real thing. Like having something to say on commentary or in promos on a different tangent. So I could say this is their fifth, King of the Death matches, won it in this year, or this is their fourth one. They've never made it past the second round. Just types of different things you could say. Uh, Again, even though it wasn't my wheelhouse, I tried to do as much as I could there. But yes, the big thing we probably want to talk about in this show, Mike Levy.
Was it Levy or Levy? I don't even know.
Same thing.
Yeah.
Levy. Yeah, it was. Do you remember like before that how he had got popular? He went like mildly viral. He's doing just being a bad, unfortunately, very if you're looking at real facts, he was not a good wrestler doing the death matches. Maybe was he calling out people like Ian as well?
I I had never heard of the guy at the time. I
Yeah,
never heard of him, had no clue who he was. I don't know if I've ever heard of him since this.
yeah. Since the for sure. No, he
Um,
had like enough of a buzz that like the locker room knew him. So uh going into the afternoon on the second day is Queen of the Death matches, and we knew Mike Levy was there. And if I remember this correctly, Ian asked me to go pitch it to him to come in, be part of the Queen of the Death matches because 2008, you're mildly homosexual, you're a woman too, but whatever. It's just a weird thing that sticks with me. I'm pretty sure he told me to go talk to Mike Levy and like pitch him the spot
hmm.
in Queen of the Death matches.
Okay, I didn't know that part of it.
Yeah, I don't. Most
Uh,
people don't. But that's as much involvement as I would have in that situation. Now, here's one though, Jim. Oh no, I'm sorry. This will be the next story. Something else related to commentary. But yeah, that was one weird thing that always stuck with me is I had to talk to him about it. And I remember talking to him after the match too, and for all the crazy things that happened in that match, he didn't seem to have a bad attitude about it. He definitely seemed to be a bit concussed, a bit glassy eyed, like looking at me and saying, thanks for the opportunity. I'm glad to work for you guys and etc. Um, but really crazy night. I know it was on YouTube, but it's probably no, it's still on YouTube. But I remember my friend watching it and listening to my commentary, and I'm just like, I do other wrestling, not just
I
this.
do other stuff. I do
I
other
do
stuff.
other
I
stuff in
promise. I do
wrestling.
other stuff.
Yeah, she was one of my longtime friends who always knew I loved wrestling. And it's like, oh, you're doing it. Awesome. Let's watch something. Oh, it's there.
Just yeah. Uh, what an intro for it. But
Mm,
Um, but yeah, for those listening I'm sure if you're listening to this, you know what happened. Um, but it was he wrestles Mickey and no sells everything that she's doing to him or trying to no sell.
Yeah, I
And
wasn't sure if he like thought he was being tough guy wrestler or legitimately didn't know how to sell it. And that's for me not
and
watching it in years, so I don't have
right.
real
And
context at the moment.
he ends up doing like he hits like did he headbutt like what did he do to her that put that goose egg on her head?
I think that was it. It was like a headbutt,
Yeah, he like
some
headbutts her or
shot.
something, did
She's
something, and she
blown
just
up.
immediately gets this Easter egg on her head.
Hmm.
And at this time, she had just started going to TNA and getting the TNA
Yes.
spots and being on
Yeah.
TV. And Ian hadn't let her sign the contract yet because he wasn't taken care of well enough to his liking in the contract. So he's like holding out for a better deal for himself and not letting her sign. And, you know, she's the brute muscle for what were
Beautiful people.
the beautiful people.
Yeah.
Um, you know, I still don't, even though she's the brute force and the muscle behind it, I still don't think they want her showing up with freaking goose eggs on her head and
Yeah.
everything else.
Yeah.
Had to at least have something going in the looks department for, especially at that time frame, for it to be a woman on TV
Yeah.
in wrestling. So it pisses everybody off, and people are like, you're jeopardizing her job. Little did we know what was still to come.
Yeah.
Um, you know, at that, but so then everybody comes out, and not everybody.
Not everyone.
Not everyone. Michael Z did not come
Numerous.
down.
No,
Um,
brother.
Jim Fannin did not move from the back of the parking lot. I think at some point I might be seen just hanging out in the back of the like you know not everybody came, but a whole lot of people came out and um, interjected themselves into it and started beating on the guy. And you know it definitely went too far. It definitely got out of hand. um because it's not like he learned anything from it. So you can't even say it was a learning, teaching moment.
Yeah.
Kind of, you can't even like try to claim that. And it was
And if the locker room were trying to teach him, it wouldn't have turned out like that.
right.
There's other ways to do that for sure.
Right. So I mean, there's no excusing anything. um he had no right being on the show, should not have been on the show. And that's what happens when you put people into a position that they don't belong on a show. Bad things happen.
Hmm.
um, but nobody is in the right there. um and then it was really I mean, I think probably 20 different, this is episode 32, and I think I've probably said about 20 different things where this was something that IWA never recovered from. Um,
Hmm.
but that is definitely on the list of things that, you know, the black eye that put on IW, we never recovered
Oh
from
yeah.
that. It was a downward trajectory from that moment. And it wasn't just because of that moment. And there was a ton of other things going on and a ton of things before it and but that's, I mean, to this day, if you Google IWA, that's going to be one of the first freaking things that pop up is the people like losing their shit and getting pissed off about that. And, you know, I'm biased, of course, even though I wasn't physically involved in that moment. You know, I'm going to say a lot of the people doing that bitching online never even fucking saw it. Definitely weren't fucking there.
Yeah.
Definitely don't know the stories behind it. They're just piling on, and you know they have heat with Ian for other shit, so they're gonna pile on this one thing, you know, um, and they're gonna be holier than thou on that. Where you know if that had happened on a CZW show, those same people would have been, that motherfucker deserved every bit of that. You know, I can't believe he fucking did that to Nick Gage, or I can't believe he did that to fucking Zandig. You know, he
Right.
got
Yeah.
exactly what he deserved. You know, and you won't be ever able to tell me otherwise on that.
Yeah. And
You
there's a
know,
lot of, Mickey being involved is going to lead to some heat. And a lot of it is just the inherent sexism, especially of that time. There definitely, yeah, there was a lot of heat drawn on IWA from that incident.
yeah. So just a horrible thing all the way around, and was definitely one of the nails in the coffin um, at that point. Um, which then leads us into the next thing that was even worse for Mickey.
Mm-hmm.
You know, in that poor girl, the shit that she had to go through. Um, you would think that this would be the rock bottom, but no, it got so much worse.
Yeah, I'm
Um,
looking. I'm looking at it now, Jim, on Cage Match. It was the very next show, right out of King of the Death matches. But all
how
you
much time was between it?
zero shows. Oh, time
But date
wise, oh,
wise, how
it's just like 2 weeks. June 21st to July 6th.
okay. So
It's about two
I'm
weeks.
pretty sure, I don't know, like if you click on it, if you click on her name and go to like just her stuff, um, there's probably going to be a TNA result in there because I think she
Hmm.
had a hardcore match on TNA taping in between, because I remember, at least the way I remember it in my head. And of course, this is freaking 20, 18 years ago.
Yeah,
So I could be misremembering it very easily.
but
But the
he's not
way
trying, folks.
I'm not trying to bend truth here, but the way I remember it, and I don't have Cage Match called up at right now to go look and see like just the her list of stuff when you go through the people's name and see everything that they've done. But I'm almost positive there's a TNA taping in between these two shows. And the way I remember it is I can't remember who she worked, but it was a hardcore match on TNA. And one of the spots they did in the match was whoever, New Jack always had the damn shopping cart of weapons or
Yeah.
whatever. So they got a shopping cart full of weapons, and whoever Mickey was working, I think, like ran the cart into her and like hit her in the leg,
Ooh,
and her leg was sore, but she never went to a doctor afterwards.
I've got it,
And
Jim. I pulled it up.
you pulled it up.
She bimbo brawl with both ODB and then the next episode, Roxy Laveau, Nikki Rocks.
Okay.
So she
It,
did two. Yeah, she did two TNA matches in between, and that was it until
okay. So
we
one of
get
those,
until we get to
one of
the other
those
match.
probably the bimbo brawl, I'm guessing.
They're both
Um,
bimbo brawls,
oh, they're
apparently.
both bimbo brawl. Okay. So,
Yeah.
well, one of those, there's like a shopping cart and they ram it into her leg.
Mm.
And she came back from that. We thought everything was going to be great because they didn't lose their mind over the goose egg. I think Terry Taylor even told her, no, that's great for the gimmick. That's great for the gimmick. Don't make a habit of it, but yeah, we can use that. That's great. Um, so he was like that was like a whoo sigh of relief,
Yeah.
not no troubles, no troubles. But still, you know, Ian Rotten's not taken well enough care of, and doesn't have it's not giving him a job in TNA, and he's not
Hmm.
making it onto TV, and he's not getting an agent job, and he's not getting, a kickback from I mean, she probably would have ended up giving him all the damn money anyway,
Yeah.
kind of deal. So, he should have just let her sign the damn thing. But, if she left and went there, then who's going to do 98% of the work for him, with everything. So, it was just this whole thing of all these reasons why, oh, that deal's not good enough yet. That deal's not good enough yet. Don't sign it. So
Yeah.
she's done all these dates for TNA and had all these shots on television and, you know, not along the same lines of Ring of Honor, not for the same reasons, but her matches in TNA is the only TNA I've ever watched to this day is the stuff that her matches that aired. But she comes back and does the match in like Joliet, right?
Yeah, it's Joliet. It's supposed to be a 30-minute Iron Man match with
Iron
Sarah Del
Woman.
Rey. Iron Woman with Sarah
Iron,
Del Rey. Yeah.
yeah. So wrestling Sarah Del Rey, and so you're ring announcing and commentating on that one.
Yeah. If you remember, Jim, you're actually on commentary
Yeah,
with
I'm
me
on
in that
commentary with
match.
you.
Okay. That's what I was
Yeah,
meant.
yeah,
I jumped way ahead during our
yeah,
last story. I was like, hey, Jim, remember? But no, it
yeah.
was this
So
match, which
so is
again,
this match,
we're
and
not trying to glorify it or anything.
yeah. So Mickey talked a little bit about this on the episode, but I could tell how upset it was getting her. So I didn't push for her to continue on with it. But, you
Hmm.
know, she didn't want to do the dive off the stage. But they had the spot plan and got to do it. Got to do, Ian pushing for it. Got to do it. It's big spot. You're the main event. You got to do it. You got to do it. And like the match before does a dive off the stage,
Oh, jeez. Of course. That's why we have agents
you
nowadays.
know, um, so then it's, oh, well, now you got to go up even higher and
Yeah,
like
so she
climb up
wasn't
on
just
that
on the
one wall. She,
stage.
she
We
climbed
had a
up onto
little
the
4 foot
wall next to it,
wall. Yeah.
and then she jumps off that, and probably the sickest thing that I've witnessed professional wrestling wise when I saw her leg just flop over the way that it
Yeah.
did. I think I immediately just jumped right off a commentary and went down to check on her because you could just tell immediately. Um, and to this day she's not fully recovered from that.
Yeah.
The that first surgery to put her leg back together and reconnect I mean, it snapped her leg right in half. And I think I'm
Did
not
she
a
get a did she get a
I'm
rod put in?
she got a rod put in, but I think the shopping cart thing, I think that like maybe put like a hairline fracture in the leg because of the
Okay.
way that it was hurting her beforehand. So the leg was already weak and had in that injury there from the shopping cart, and then from jumping at that height and trying to protect Sarah because there's no way Sarah could have caught her.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know if Claudio would have been able to catch her at that height, you know, um, jumping onto him. It would have been everything for Claudio to be able to catch her and hold on. Um, so, she's trying to put all the weight on herself to save Sarah from having to try to catch her. And then, you know, it's, it went everywhere. The
Yeah.
footage went everywhere, and she asked for it to not go everywhere, and people still kept putting it everywhere, and it
How
it,
did
it made
uh
it on it made it on to like Comedy Central with their wasn't the
it was
talks
on
wasn't
Tosh
talk
Point
soup
oh.
Tosh point oh, and they
I
put it
actually
on
just
there.
messaged you that here in the
Yeah,
Zoom
yeah.
chat because I see
Um,
how this is going. But like, so I remember, Mike Robles is filming it, and he sees the leg break. He puts the camera down. He gives us the Iggy, like, stop talking, like, this thing's over. And I
yeah.
know when it was released, they did as much of the match as they could, and they put up a basically, I think they just put words up on the screen like, Mickey suffered a leg injury here. We're not showing it. Um, but as I recall, just, Mickey had a best of from Smart Mark come out soon after, and those are, specifically released to benefit. IWA will benefit IWA, it'll benefit Ian and so forth. But like, if a wrestler gets their own best of from Smart Mark, they get the kickback. So I'm presuming that Mickey was, in on whether Smart Mark would release the footage, and that was when they actually released the footage. Am I right, or as far as
I
you
can't
know?
re- I can't remember,
Okay.
because at that point, like, once once she broke her leg, like, I was done. I mean,
Okay.
I still stuck around for, you know you said that was July, so I was still around for another year after that, but
Mm-hmm.
that was when I really checked out at that point and was looking for the exit ramp. Just how
Yeah.
can I get out of here at that point? And um, there was so much going on, and you know, and a lot of it was like, Ian blaming her for ruining
Yeah.
the TNA deal. And it's like,
Yeah.
you went out there and you got yourself hurt. It's like, well, with a spot that you told her to do, that
Specifically.
that that specifically told her to do, that you then specifically told her to do it even more dangerously from an even higher height, because you didn't bother to tell the people in the match before, hey, the big
Right.
spot in the main event is coming off the stage, so don't do anything off the stage. um and you were the one that told her not to sign the deal so she wouldn't have any you know landing pad, with a contract to help her through the
Right.
time. And the hospital didn't do the surgery right the first time.
Oh, geez.
They like didn't put enough screws in to
Oh.
to hold the bone to the rod, and so it didn't
Mm-hmm.
heal right. So then she had to, insurance being what it is in this country, you know the second surgery was deemed as not necessary.
Oh, okay.
And so, like, the insurance wouldn't touch it. And so then there was like, she had to fill out paperwork for like 3 months with the hospital to get on, like, pretty much their, like, amnesty plan, to where
Mm-hmm.
the hospital would just write it off, and they were like, well, it was our fuck up that you know that it didn't heal right. So she ends up getting the second surgery. But the whole time, like, being forced to work through it, and being in the ring when she had no no right being in the ring at that point, and was in no condition to do it, but being pressured into getting back onto the show so there could be a free wrestler, and you could sell tickets and people will want to come out and see you, and you know cheer you on through your recovery and everything else. And it was just absolutely sickening at that
Yeah.
point. And
So I hope that is clarified. Again, this was 16 years ago, but um, as far as I know, from like the wrestling and production side, it was initially not released, and then it must have been released with Mickey's permission. But like you said, then people are now sharing the clip and
it's
and
everywhere.
making a big fuss, and and insulting people involved for it. You know, when
Yeah.
someone's got a really serious thing that you and I, it's a few feet in front of us. That
Right in
was,
front of us.
oh, like
Right in front of
I,
us. And
so Mickey's benefit show I just looked up too was later that August. And just me personally, I don't know, I was so shocked. Like I felt bad, but I couldn't even reach out to her. Like I couldn't do that myself where I'm write a message. So I just went up to her like, I'm so sorry that I didn't message. Like I feel actively bad about it. Like it just crushed me seeing it,
right,
let alone what you're going through. And she was a sweetheart the whole time.
right. Um, so the next segment,
Although, you know what, Jim? I'm looking at my segments. We totally skipped TPI 08, my one Ted Petty
your
Invitational.
one Ted Petty. You see, you were
Not
so
this
thinking about
one.
2009 that
I guess
you were
so.
so thinking about the one that you had a T-shirt for that didn't even happen. Um,
Yeah.
there's people in Africa that could use that shirt, along with the Bears beating the Colts Super Bowl T-shirt, and the Blue Jays World Series championship shirts last year.
Hmm.
They could use the 2009 TPI, and you've got it.
Yeah, yeah. But 2008 TPI rolled around. I mean, I don't have like a specific story from it, but it was uh, a big weekend, and as an IWA fan, it was really cool to be part of that. I believe I went to the 2006 when Cannon wins, but this one is full of kind of outside people. We had Squire Dave Taylor, Bobby Fish in his well, he did come on the show before, but Bobby Fish was like kind of outside. Loved seeing Too Tough Tony versus Drake Younger. That one totally surprised me with Too Tough Tony's athleticism getting in there. We had Cassandro from Mexico, and he's got his movie on Amazon Prime in the
I ended
last
up
2 years.
watching that. I ended up watching
Yeah.
that. I was like,
How
hey,
was it?
he not bad, not bad. It was, I didn't win any Oscars, but
Mm-hmm.
wrestling fans would enjoy it.
Yeah,
It was pretty good.
very cool to see. Yeah, exactly. It's like when something mainstream can strike and let people know like what, it's based on something you like, and the Exoticos is definitely like a niche of wrestling that you don't think about at all. So very cool to see that and have him there. I tried to get him on commentary, but that didn't happen. But I got Tracy Smothers on commentary, so that was
There you go.
bucket list for me. And the big surprise on that show, double not announced Eddie Kingston versus Necro Butcher. That was amazing to see. Aris coming in from the UK, Elgin, Castagnoli, Ricochet, Tyler Black, Hero back, Sammy Callahan starting his run, Trick Davis, who you had on the show, Prince Ali, Ego, Too Cold Scorpio, and first female participant in TPI, Sarah Del Rey.
Nice. Have absolutely
Crazy,
no
crazy
memories
lineup.
of that show
No, no,
whatsoever.
no.
Nothing. Not a
Well,
thing. I
shit.
think on the Ask Me Anything episode that we did that went like 6 hours
Mm-hmm.
total, the Tripping Balls asked me about David Taylor, and I'm like, he came into an IWA show, and he was like, yeah, he did a TPI, and I'm like, oh
He's a
shit,
TPI, brother.
I had no clue, like no memory of that whatsoever, none. That show is as existent as the 2009 TPI in my memory banks. It's just not there at all. So it was why I didn't mind skipping right over that one, because
Fair
it
enough.
was it was I yeah, I've got nothing on that. I other than the Cassandro, I knew Cassandro had done a show, but I couldn't
Mm-hmm.
have told you that it was the TPI that he did.
Yeah,
Yeah,
TPI.
I couldn't. I couldn't have told you that it was TPI. I knew that he had come in and done a show, but I couldn't have told you it was TPI.
He unfortunately broke Chuck Taylor's collarbone in that match on the first night. They were up top. They were up top, and it was a victory roll from the top rope. I presume that I don't know if it was supposed to be the finish. It did end up being the finish, but that broke his Chuck Taylor's collarbone that night. It's just
Yeah,
one of the
no
things
memory
that
of
happened.
that. People dropping like flies on our shows around this time frame. Man.
Yeah. Well, that let us see that TPI let us see Claudio versus Sarah Del Rey in the semifinal. The finals were Sammy Callahan, Claudio, Drake Younger. Drake Younger winning that, and so Callahan was really coming up at this time, and I've met him a little bit before in Indiana. And I remember this too around that time because I would have said it on commentary that a lot of people love to take credit for Sammy Callahan. How I don't know. Like they're not the ones driving, they're not the ones doing all the matches, shedding blood, making connections, making towns, and this was a situation where Sammy was like notoriously, and this might have even been the start, but between like CZW and uh place Insanity Pro in Indiana, Sammy was getting in these tournaments and making it to the finals, but he'd just never win. I thought that was at least whether intention, probably unintentional on Ian's part, but I thought that was cute that it
Hmm.
happened here. And we also saw that was I know you had Trick Davis on. That was he and Hero in a Falls Count Anywhere, and trying to make up, trying to revamp the 8-man comedy match you were talking about was Bobby Fish, Dingo, who was the champion at the time, and Ricochet versus Too Tough Tony, Aris, and Prince Ali with Joey Eastman. So more of just a why is this match happening? Like oddball wild card 6-man tag on that event, but that was very cool to see.
Yeah, like I say, I remember Cassandro came in. I vaguely remember that Claudio wrestled Sarah at some point, so that must have been
Mm-hmm.
on that one. But that's yeah, I
Yeah, so
can't.
Sarah beats Cassandro in round 2, and then she
Okay,
falls to Claudio in the semis.
okay,
Just
yeah,
crazy amounts of talent. It was a wild time. We're all sitting there looking at the message board about who's announced next, and very, very, very cool assortment of wrestlers in there.
yeah. So we'll move
Whether
on
Jim
from
remembers or not.
yeah, it happened whether I remember it or not. That's what I've learned about this podcast. Whether I remember it or not, it happened.
Mhm.
So now you had down the tryout show that
Yeah.
the first one that had happened and
He- yeah, I don't know. I mean, I don't know how if Ian was including you in things at that time.
I
This
was
is You're very
trying
out
to
at this
not
point,
yeah, I
right?
was trying to not be involved at that point. So
For sure.
um I I did have John Wayne Murdoch and Reed Bentley on just a couple of by the time this airs, it'll be a couple of episodes after that one.
Well,
But
so
we had
yeah.
just talked about the tryout show because John Wayne Murdoch was on this one under
Hmm.
his previous name. It's like Damien something or other. And
Yeah, Damian Payne and the New York Gangster, as you
yeah, so
noted, versus the Hooligans in
I
their
had
IWA Mid
I
South
had
debut.
no idea that had no idea that Murdoch had done a show during my time frame. I thought he was completely after me, but yeah, he told the story of this one where the Hooligans just ate his partner for lunch in that match. So
Well,
he
my
was.
go ahead.
I was just gonna say, so he judged as a like Ian told him he had to be judged as a tag team, and so he didn't make the cut at that. So he was a tryout show reject at that point, but Like,
my memory and inclusion of this show, possibly because you, I don't know how related with you being on the way out, but like I told you, I've always loved booking and loved putting things together and loving IWA Mid South. I at some point here in my run, I telling Ian, like, if I can help you, if I can help put things together, because he used to, he had you, he had Prazak for a while, he had Hero, and everyone I'm sure had the exact same path where they get super marginalized and handcuffed and what they have to do until they're completely spit out. But I had to be the next one in line to hope to get something. Um, and so it turns out I show up this day. I think I had to pick Ian up actually for Joliet. And he says, "Hey kiddo, put this show together for me." And like, I'm hoping that I've got Drake Younger and Dingo and Ego and Necro and all the O's, like all these types of
all the
wrestlers. I'm
O's.
hoping to put them all the O's, Jacobs and Chuck Taylor with a non-fractured collarbone. I'm hoping to, book these matches. And we come on this show that's got like 36, I don't know how many, we can count this. It's probably close to 50 talents, most of which we don't know, who, did their application and showed up, and it's like, all right, you can put together this show. And I know Eastman was there too, and he helped me big time. But my first chance to actually book IWA was the most innocuous, unmeaningful show, the first ever tryout
Well,
show.
it was your tryout for
I
booking.
guess I guess
So
so.
in a way, it was a
Yeah.
fitting.
And one benefit we had was a lot of guys that you see wrestle there traveled together. So a lot of guys ended up bringing their opponent. I remember though, it was Eastman and I sitting at a table, and just everyone, we were like, all right, everyone line up and come talk to us and let us know some info about you so we can put this together. So most of the time it was, all right, this, they traveled together, they can work together. Very few situations I would end up knowing someone. I remember the first match is Willie Richardson, who was member of the Soul Touchers,
Yeah.
known as the Black Dust, the African American Dream, an
Okay.
actual an actual African American doing Dusty Rhodes kind of gimmick versus Mark
Okay.
Houston, just a big cowboy guy. I was like, all right, that's good. Two guys that look like wrestlers, and it's contrast to styles. That'll be the first one, so we're not shitting the bed right off the top like a lot of bad bookers will do. They'll get the two hangers on that they've never seen, that have never seen a gym, and it's like, you guys go out there first, and that's the first thing that someone sees on a wrestling show. So we were
Right.
strongly against that. We put two guys look like wrestlers and look, they had a bit of experience. But the one that ended up sticking out ended up being the future Jonathan Gresham versus Bill the Butcher.
See,
Who
and I told you before we started recording, I actually remember Bill the Butcher.
Yeah,
That
you'll
that
remember
guy,
Bill.
that guy, that guy. I liked him. He was pretty good. Had a gimmick that I appreciated. He played it well, and
Yeah.
he had some good matches, and he was a good. I thought he was a good find anywhere on this show. So um, that was like probably about the one name. Him and the Hooligans, I remembered because they didn't change their name, to for when they actually made a name for themselves.
hmm
Um,
Yeah, the Hooligans came out of that, and but yeah, Bill the Butcher and Gresham both came from the WWA 4, which was, so at the time it was Mr. Hughes and Elix Skipper as the head trainers. So those two classic vets ended up training both of them. But Bill the Butcher, big bearded Bruiser Brody type wrestler. And then
yeah,
there's Jonathan Gresham, who's probably legit about 5'4". At the time, not as bulky as he is now, but that always stuck with me. I got to work with Gresham a lot more later, and the thing I remember from that was Eastman. Eastman fell in love with Gresham, and he goes, he looks like he looks like a little Mr. T, and he looks like he can kick your ass. And I was like, all right, let's go with it, Ethan.
Hey, yeah.
and
Uh,
and uh, and Gresham technically won that match, but Bill the Butcher at the time got super over.
yeah.
So we had our success
Yeah.
story from the tryout show.
Yeah, and when I watched on IWTV, after Prophet of Ash had put in the clips with the rejects, and he put in clips from Murdoch wrestling the hooligans, and this I could not recognize him. He looked so
Mm-hmm.
different, such
Mm-hmm.
a so young and so different without the beard. Um, I was like, wow, that no, that can't that's him. It's like, well, no wonder I didn't recognize him and remember him uh having been on that show, because did not look like him
Yeah,
at all in that one.
we
So
all start somewhere. Jimmy Jacobs used to be
yes,
on a pogo stick, you know.
that he was. That he was. So the next thing that you had down on your list was the Michigan militia, which I have no idea what's to come. So
No,
uh,
I,
talk about
I
the
re-
Michigan militia.
well, I vaguely remember you being around there at the time, and I think it was
Oh,
just
I'm sure I was around, but I just have no memory of this whatsoever.
it was just an odd situation. Nothing I was specifically involved in, but like, there are guys from Michigan coming up, Brian Skyline and Jeff Brooks, Christian Abel, and Josh Raymond, and guys that didn't have a specific role, but I guess at the time there in the news was about like actual Michigan militia, people that were, trying to, I guess, make their own waves against the government. And it's kind of
Okay.
like a newsworthy thing, so that's why they got the name. They would
Okay.
a lot of guys thrown in as heels there, and I just always remember like an odd line to walk because I was openly from Michigan as well, and I was being accused of being in or whatever in cahoots or biased towards the Michigan
Okay.
militia. And I always had to fight that situation. Um, that comes up to something a little later there, but it was just, yeah, well, if you don't remember it, that's okay. I
Hey, you can still
one
talk about it. I mean, this is you're the guest on here, so we're
That's
talking
also
about
about as much as
you. We're talking about
much
you.
as I
So
remember. Yeah, yeah, I
uh,
was not in or about to join the Michigan militia. It was a fun group of
and
guys. Gave us some foils for different wrestlers.
yeah, you need to have people up and down the card. You can't,
Hmm.
you know, not everybody can be the main event. So
Exactly. Yeah.
you need the people to beat on your way to the main event or whatever.
Yeah.
Next thing you had on your list was Classy Lassie. Um,
I hope someone can pull up a picture of her. I'm sure if
I
anyone
believe
remembers her.
I believe so. That was with the yellow dog, right?
Yeah, so at TPI '08, Jason Strife is feuding with Dingo, who's the champion. Dingo was kind of the IWA Mid South champion for most of my run there, and he had a lot of great matches. And that's a testament to him being able to bring up someone else, not just wrestling, Eddie Kingston's and so forth, like not just wrestling bigger names, but wrestling someone who's trying to make their way up, and credit to Strife for doing it as well, for really stepping up. But they had a loser leaves IWA Mid South
Yeah.
chain match there on the TPI. And so a couple months later, the plan the whole time was he was going to come back. And of course, Ian, as a fan of old Southern Florida wrestling, he decides he's going to be the yellow dog.
Right, because it's always the yellow dog
But
or the James Gang, one of
exactly.
or the Midnight Rider. Yeah,
But with all respect to every other yellow dog in wrestling, this version of the yellow dog was my absolute favorite. So he's actually wrestling as a babyface now, and he's got the full body yellow suit with a mask. He probably had ears and a nose and
Yes,
stuff,
it did. Yes, it had ears and a nose. I'm almost certain.
and the tail. And I always likened it like watching this dude perform. I was like, he's not a dude being a dog. He is a dog pretending to be a pro wrestler. That's how good he was with it.
Yeah.
And his girlfriend at the time, who was just some absolute baddie, the emo MySpace looking girl, he wanted her as his manager. Okay. And we're sitting around like trying to come up with a name for her. And I can proudly say, just came out of my brain. You look at this gal, she's with the dog, classy lassie.
Classy Lassie, a looker. I think there is a. I think I'm pretty sure at one point for like I was like trying to get everybody into the PWI 500. So I had
Yes.
like taken photos of everybody and I was like gonna mail out these packets. And here's the write up for each person, and here's the photos. And I'm pretty sure I had taken a photo of the yellow dog and Classy Lassie together.
Mm-hmm.
And I ended up giving like all that stuff to Maniwa because he's trying to, anything IWA related, if it's a
Yeah.
pictures, whatever, he's asking people to send it to him. So if you guys if anybody's listening to this and you're sitting on pictures that you took while you were at a show of IWA action,
We
like
won't judge you for it, but
we won't judge you for it. Just send a digital copy to Nick Maniwa. He's Nick Maniwa on all the socials. Nick Maniwa at gmail.com. Send him the photos, and just so because we're trying to, like, somebody's got to curate all this history together
mm-hmm.
and keep it alive. So he's trying to put it all together for everybody. So if you've got anything, send it to him. And I'm pretty sure I had given him everything I had. So I think he should have a picture of Classy Lassie and the yellow dog that will probably make it into the montage
Yes.
for this episode.
Yeah, I had to message Nick earlier this week. I was like, bro, the MySpace purge of however many years ago, I lost all my
Right?
pictures, but he had pictures of he and I and other people, so that was good. Oh, hey, one more tryout show before the next topic I wanted to mention. Um, Kind of the same situation. All the wrestlers come in, we have them come through the line, and one guy comes up with his opponent, and I'm like, what's your work name? He goes, Kareem Abdul Jabbar. And I'm like, I recognize that name because I'm such a sucker for wrestling. I'm looking through the Wrestling Observer, highlight weekend results from all these random indies and everything. He's like, okay, I've heard your name. Like, that's cool. And put him in his match with the guy. That is the man who ended up becoming Sugar Dunkerton,
Okay.
or Pineapple Pete for anyone who saw his little cameo in AEW. But
Okay.
he worked a number of matches for IWA too. It was just another
Okay.
one I wanted to give a shout out. Shout out to
I
Shug
th-
D.
I think I'm going to be on a show with him.
Oh,
I think he's on the Paul Cage show. Is
oh,
he
amazing.
is he like Shug D or something now?
Shug D now. Yeah, yeah. He
Yes,
went
yes.
to
So he's actually I think he's wrestling for the Midwest Territory title against Ronnie Bass Jr.
much
On the
deserved.
Paul Cage show I'm doing. So
Yeah, and to give some whatever credit to the platform of IWA, he did that. He tryout show Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, used him on a couple shows when we could, and I'm presuming Shakara noticed him because then he went over there, and that's where he became Sugar Dunkerton, where he was the Harlem Globetrotter type character. Shakara was
okay,
big on characters and shortened it to Shug D. Great dude, great wrestler, really charismatic.
nice.
And
Okay.
all just because I read something on the Wrestling Observer website is reading random results from Georgia feds that I don't know. I'm like, I know
Okay.
that name. All right, you're winning. Who do you want to work
Okay.
with? Him? Okay, you win. Perfect. Let's do this.
Nice. Okay. And then you've got booking Wrestling with a Heart 2008.
Yeah, so I guess that would be the first and in a very in a very minority of any shows, but like that was another show that I actually got to book for Ian. I don't know how this came about, but it was a Christmas show in Joliet. Uh, very small roster. Maybe that even lent to it. And I think half of the roster had like traveled with me because the uh, guys from Canada would come in, drive like 5, 6 hours, meet us in Kalamazoo, and then we drive another 3 hours to Joliet. But so an official like canon IWA Mid South show I got to book. Um, but basically, again, with so few people, I took a page out of Prazak's book. Maybe you'll remember this one where there was some show where it was like four singles matches, big schmas going in intermission, then leading to an 8-man tag. But that's so I just
Yeah, that was
totally took.
probably, it sounds like it was probably the one that Jimmy Jacobs, we talked about it on his episode because it was like
Okay.
with James Gibson or Jamie Noble
Yeah.
and
Yes, that
him
was the
and
one.
it was like, yeah, there was 20 people in the audience and they everybody wrestled a singles match and then it came back as like an 8-man tag or
Hmm.
whatever at the end that ended up going like over an hour or
Oh
whatever.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Because I remember I bought the DVD and they just in that moment that day I'm just like we can do this and I was working for Prazak a couple months later at Shimmer. I was like, yeah, I totally took your idea, by the way. So I at least gave him credit
Yeah,
when
you
it
gave him credit,
happened.
so that's all that counts. You know, you gave him the credit. Nice.
But it was a lot of fun. It had the main event ends up being Ego Fantasco, Game Boy, Jason Hades, and the hype Jimmy Shalwin versus Canadian Corey Mason, Chris Chambers, Prince Ali, and Trick Davis. They all did like singles matches in the first half. Corey Mason threw up and just got rolled up, so he didn't have
Nice.
to keep going. And then he's got to come wrestle in the main event too.
You know,
Uh, and that was where Ian wrestled another guy in my car, the old timer Jeff King, which popped all of us because we just love Jeff King and give him a match with Ian was fun.
nice.
So nothing mind blowing. I'm not like
Yeah.
genius of the world or whatever, but making do
But
with what we can. And similar to what you said in the Sellersburg, it's like yeah, because we didn't have a big house there because of the weather and everything. Don't punish the people that showed up. You punish the ones that didn't and make them want to come to your next one,
right.
as best you can.
Yep.
And it
Yep.
made for a good DVD to watch, not a throwaway show, which it easily could have been.
Well, there's so many throwaway shows throughout
Yeah.
the.
No, it's like I was talking with someone about this. I'm looking through these results, and it's just like, what was consequential? Like, there's a lot of inconsequential things that happened on these shows. As much as you can, help the guys that are in there trying to show up and try to have a platform.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. And then we'll skip to the Winter Wars 2009. And you put our only disagreement, I remember, in deciding on the 7 tag team gauntlet match.
Yes.
So,
Yeah. Yeah, that was because again, you messaged me before this and like you want to give me an apology, which again, not necessary at all. I don't remember any heat with us other than maybe because I was friends with Jacobs and you didn't like him and you didn't like Michigan people, and that's fine. But we were again trying to help Ian as much as we could, and so it's a 7 team tag match gauntlet. So that's 14 wrestlers that Ian did not know what the fuck to do with. And but it was fun putting that together. I got to have the Soul Touchers kind of run the gauntlet for not to run the gauntlet, but they had like a 3 match streak there. But yeah, the match has Michigan Militia, Brian Skyline, and Jeff Brooks. And then there was the team of other Michigan guys, Jimmy Shawlin and the Game Boy. And just it was just a small thing. I remember you saying like, "Oh, they're Michigan Militia too, they're heels." And I just had to like push back a little. Like, no, like Jimmy Shawlin's kind of over with people that just because they're from Michigan, like me, just because they're from Michigan, they're not they don't have to be part of that group thing. And you conceded to it as well.
Okay.
That was just so that was like honestly the only like mild tension I ever remember with you. I have great memories of you,
See,
and it's all in the past,
and
brother.
I have no memory of that.
Zero.
I have zero
Zero.
memory of that.
Perfect. I could
I'm
have
like
got away
I'm
with
like
it.
sitting there going, is the hour is it him and Ian that he's talking about here? Is it being hit? I was like, I don't remember a tag gauntlet, and I don't. And then I'm like sitting there going, well, it's Winter Wars 2009, so maybe that's out of place, and maybe that belongs down, at the end when Ian came back and started running after he closed for the 400th time.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
I was like, maybe that goes down there, and I wasn't even there, so maybe. And I was like, yeah, I don't. I can
Well, good.
definitely see Ian not having any idea what to do with 14 people that he
Right.
booked on the damn show, and that's just one damn match.
There's
how
10
many
there.
how
I
many
just
people
counted.
were on this damn show?
There's 10 matches and one has 14 wrestlers. And they did not double shot and like they did not compete elsewhere on the card. This had B-Boy, Callahan, Ego, Carter Gray, Ali, Ricochet's on it, young Juice Robinson, Elgin, Greg Excellent came in with Devin Moore, Ash from Canada, Rain, Rain and the Hooligans versus Mickey and Ian and Axel on this show. So
Geez,
many
I,
freaking
I wonder
people.
how much money we made on that show.
Right. What is the
I mean, what the
budget
fuck is
here?
what the fuck? My God.
Oh,
Like that's I mean,
and it's winter. This is
and it's
February
winter,
7th.
and you probably had almost more people in the damn tag gauntlet match than there was people in the audience. If
Exactly.
if, if I had to guess, it's
That old school phrase, like, well, if a fight breaks out between the fans in the locker room, we got them outnumbered.
right. I like our chances. We're
Like our
the odds are in
chances.
our favor in that
Yeah.
situation. Just nutty the way that and it was, and it not just like on this show. It like
No, no. This is not an
all of the damn
outlier.
shows. You're just
Many,
yeah,
many a
sure.
time.
The more the merrier.
Right.
Not the best way to try to make money in the wrestling business
Hmm.
if you're promoting. Um, so before we start getting into the end of my time,
Yes.
um, we can talk about Larry Sweeney.
Yeah, I didn't want to, I don't want this to be a downer thing or definitely like talking about him because I had a very good relationship with him. Like I said, even when I was nobody uh, doing a podcast, he gave me a lot of time just because Josh is like, no, that he's cool. But then obviously we got to work together. There was a period, this must have been like when he's out of Ring of Honor, but so Ian was using him. I remember he like stayed at Ian's house for a
Yeah,
long time, right? Became
yeah,
close with James Christopher and John Calvin, was
right.
staying over there. Um, but yeah, this was the time where I saw what was wrong with him with his manic depression. Um, and just that was a definitely a sad thing to say. I'm not trying to like bring it to light for any bad reasons.
Right,
I
right,
actively wish that dark side of the ring would do something on him because he was so talented, because he had that big run in Ring of Honor. He had a guest spot on Monday Night Raw where he was Nick Hogan. He loved professional wrestling. He rubbed shoulders with so many different people. Obviously, like gone before his time, but he was
right,
like an Eddie. He's like an Eddie Gilbert, where like he could have done so much
right.
in
And
wrestling.
just more charisma in his pinky than
Yeah, yeah,
99.99999% of the other professional wrestlers in the entire world. I mean, he was a
yeah,
special talent. And I have been very outspoken on this podcast of my disdain and hatred for comedy wrestling. And it irks Nick every time I, bring it up. And he immediately will, like I've said on here, as soon as I go onto a diatribe, he'll just start screaming at me, "You wore a bra!" And I was like, one time when it made sense in the story because the people told me to wear a bra the show before. So they got their, I listened to them and gave them what they wanted. Um, you know, Sweeney was a comedy guy that did it in the way that I could appreciate and like,
yeah,
and,
yeah.
he did it in a way that wasn't, you know, haha, this is all fake. It was just, I'm funny,
I
and
think the way to put it, because I tell people now, I'm like, there's a difference between doing comedy and being funny.
right,
That's it. There's comedy, ha
right,
ha, blah, but like actually being funny. And
right.
that was him,
That was
funny
him.
and entertaining.
And the one thing that I'll always remember about Sweeney was before he passed, not too long before he passed. I just remember we were standing in Ian's yard there in Joliet,
Hmm.
and we had like a 45-minute philosophical discussion. Never brought wrestling up one time. We were just
Yeah,
talking about life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, and it was like probably the most in-depth and deep conversation that I ever had in the
yeah.
12 years that I was around IWA. And like I said, it was probably close to an hour. And we just stood in the yard chatting. And not one time did we talk wrestling. Not
I'm
one
glad
time.
you say this, Jim. This is like for anyone who believes in all this cosmic relevancy and everything. That reminded me of a story I didn't even think when I'm writing here. One night we were hanging out. He and I were hanging out, and he's talking about reincarnation. And we all think of it as when you die, um, your soul goes into someone else when they are born. But there's another form of it, another belief of it, which you'll actually see in the Doors movie. Remember the Val Kilmer movie?
I I
You didn't
know the
see
movie.
this?
I've never watched it.
All
Never
right, we'll
watched
go watch it. So young Jim Morrison, it's in songs too, but it's told through the movie. So young Jim Morrison, he may already be 7 at this point, but they're driving through this desert area, and there's a Native American that dies on the side of the road, but they like make eye contact. And Jim had always talked about how he was the reincarnated spirit of this Native American. And on that night, Larry Sweeney told me, he's like, I fully believe I am the reincarnation of of um of John Lennon, and John Lennon, I presume Sweeney was already alive. I forget the exact year, they die and that Sweeney was born and everything, but like he told me
I
that.
think
He's like,
Lennon was like around 1980 or something like that, I think.
yeah, yeah. And Alex was older. I don't know if he was born in the late 70s or whatever it was, but that struck me. I was like, okay, because at first I was skeptical. I'm like, I think John Lennon died, after you were already born. But I remember the thing from the Doors movie. I'm like, no, there's another form of reincarnation where your spirit leaves one vessel into the other. But he told me that, and that's something, when we do talk about his legacy, I wish other people would hear. I don't know who else he told that to, but he told me, and like it really struck me. Like I could
Yeah,
see that.
it was a very philosophical. I don't remember reincarnation as being part of it. It very well could have been, but it was like just like I said, just this deep meaning of life kind of
Hmm.
thing, and where you could just tell the man was brilliant. And
Yeah.
so I was shocked when what happened, but you know, he would be making a hell of a lot of money in the business today if he
Hmm.
was still
Yes.
alive. He
Yes, indeed.
he would be the stuff that he could have done with MJF,
Oh my God.
just off the charts. The two of that, like they could have been married to each other for a long run, just flip
Yeah.
flopping as to like who, okay, this year I'm the baby and you're the heel, and next year we'll flip it, and it wouldn't
And
have
again,
gotten
he
stale.
he was so skilled. He didn't have to work with someone with the charisma of MJF. He could work with someone with the charisma of a dish rag and do
Right.
something with them. Yeah.
Right. But if he had
Amazing
somebody that
dude.
could match him in that, it
Yeah.
would have been it would have been top of the charts,
And the real platform for everyone to see it. That's why
right.
I feel like maybe Dark Side of the Ring is our best hope at this point.
Well, we'll see. They've made the announcement. Samoa Joe versus Necro Butcher
Joe
is
Necro.
going to be on the next season, um, with
I submitted.
Dave Prazak on there. So
Oh,
if
good.
if that actually does well, who knows? Maybe they'll start doing some others.
I submitted a little footage for the Zach Gowen story that'll be coming up too. Get my name in some credits.
Oh, nice.
He's great story, fantastic, like great wrestler to this day. I saw him last Saturday, just amazing.
Okay. Um, so we'll move into your first experience, my 500th experience with
Yeah,
the IWA as closing event, the King of the Crimson Mask in August of 2009. I believe what
there it is.
August 28th, I believe is the date. Um,
August 2nd. Wait, no, hold up. Crimson Mask. Did we say 2008, 2009?
2009.
Oh, I'm on the wrong page. Sorry, brother.
That's all
Let's
right.
make this happen.
1,000 results to go there.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, 2009, Bellevue of all places. Yep, you're right. August 28th.
Yeah.
Um, we had we had the aforementioned Jimmy Shawwin versus Matt Cage and Jonathan Gresham triple threat match. And for some reason, Jonathan Gresham at this point was wearing a cowboy hat and like bucking Bronco type.
Okay.
And Shawwin
Um,
told me afterwards, like, bro, if I knew he was going to do a small black cowboy thing, I'd have done something with it. But I didn't know until he showed up. Yep, you're on here with managing Dingo,
yeah.
the heavyweight title versus Ryan Phoenix, and oh god, just a bunch of hardcore matches. We got Jacobs, Elgin, Dog Collar, loose light tubes, four-way death match, barbed wire boards and pits of glass Taipei death. It's Moxley, Mickey, and Sammy versus the Hooligans and Neil Diamond Cutter, one of Ian's high ideas, I believe. But Neil Diamond Cutter ran with that and it still works to this day. Still, he's getting
Right.
bigger on the he's big on the deathmatch scene now, which is dope. This is his
Yeah.
last year, I heard.
Yep. And he just got to go to Japan. So,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
good on him. But yeah, this was until this year, this was my last night in the business.
Mm-hmm.
Where I was leaving come the anniversary show in October anyway.
Yeah.
And so when he decided, like 2-3 days before this show, that he did his, this is it, I'm done, announcement on the message boards, and I just put it in my head. I was like, okay, I know damn well he's gonna come back. Um,
Yeah.
so I'm gonna go to the ring and cut my promo saying that I don't care if you come back. I'm done. This is it. And give it to where I have, not gonna leave myself uh any wiggle room to come back. Like, I'm done. And
Yeah.
I was like, I was pretty certain that he wasn't gonna come back by October. Um,
Well, he
since
made
it's
it till
just
November,
he made it to
November
November. That was quicker
20th.
than I thought. It was quicker
Yeah,
than I thought.
I'm just
I
thinking about
thought I
it.
thought I thought it would at least trickle into 2010, but I had already signed. I was getting married in December, and I had already signed up for to go back to school and to get my master's. And I was like, I'm done with this. I'm out.
Mhm.
So that was I remember cutting the promo, and that's about all and the relief when it was over,
Yeah.
and getting in that car and driving away into the sunset and thinking that was the end of things.
Well,
Um,
it's good, Jim, that you did that because in life we all need to set our boundaries. Like you and I both know how much we would make from working for Ian based on how much work it is amongst all, even though I'm not a bumper, you'd bump sometimes, but like the sacrifices we're making, whether they're how relative to anyone else, either way, at the end of the day, you got to set your boundaries, know what's happening in your life, and I think anyone can support your decision there, especially based on the way you were treated. And um, the main the main thing I remember from that show, other than Gresham and the little cowboy hat, was by main event time, which is Ian and Pondo versus Elkview Adam and Viper. So I'm on commentary with Jimmy Shawlin, and Moxley cleaned up from his match, probably had a drink or two, and came on commentary just doing a straight Dusty Rhodes impression for like minutes on end where it's not even funny at some point. I'm like, let's talk about the no rope barbed wire electrified light tube match a little here. But
well, and I
Moxley
mean,
did pretty well for himself.
and he was pretty green in the business at that point, and it was his first. A lot of those guys were probably like, "Oh, damn, this is the end." We're
Mm-hmm.
kind of like everybody, Pondo and them are like, "Oh shit, he's 6 weeks, we're back."
Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
they
And I'm sure that's
they
when the
knew, but
announcement was. I'm sure that's
yeah.
when the message board lit up.
Oh, nice. Yeah, because you said they come back in November, so not 2
Yeah.
months. And how many times can you run the same bullshit? We're done. This is it. And oh
Mm-hmm.
well, if you buy enough DVDs on this going out of business DVD sale, well we'll keep going. And I
Yeah.
mean, the boy who cried wolf. You know.
Yeah, and wrestlers are doing that now. They've been doing it over the last couple of years where they're like, this is my last year. And it's like, if you just want, like, don't try to work me. Like, I know you just kind of want pity and want to get booked and get your respect and everything, but it's so overdone at this point. Or I wish people would have a little more pride and be like, not do that that kind of thing. Like, I got X amount of time left thing. Like, just do it and make and show your body of work.
Well, now it's like you're personally attacking me because that's what I did when I came back this year. And I'm like, okay,
You get a
this is
pass. You get a pass, Jim.
I called it. It's my comeback for a farewell tour since I didn't get to do one the first time. And
Wait, did you put a time limit on it?
I did not put a time limit on it.
There you go.
I
Jim
just said,
Fannin
it's the
exonerated.
it's the comeback for a farewell tour.
Perfect.
And I put and I put a bucket list of items out there, and like I just came back 2 months ago, and I've pretty much already checked off the list that I had, because it
That's
was it
awesome.
was manage Mickey, and I did that the first night. Do
Nice.
commentary again with Maniwa. I did that on the first night. Manage the rejects. I'm doing that next month. You know, I was like, I guess I should have came up with a much larger list, because the only other things I had on the list was like get flown somewhere, work overseas, and be on TV. And I'm like, those ain't happening. So, I should have came up with more of the attainable stuff, that just flew off I was able to get those lined up in a hurry and knock those off. And now I'm like sitting there going, geez, I gotta come up with new goals now that are semi-attainable. So
Well, your style I approve of. There we go. Let
okay,
me
yeah,
say
I did
that.
not put a time limit on it. I didn't say,
Perfect.
this is but I'm about to turn in a few months. I turn 50, so
Yeah.
the it doesn't have a long run, that's for sure. But we'll see how long it ends up going. There was at least one other story here that I was like, oh, I need to hear about this. You talked about Ian having an idea of a 64-man tournament for the title when
Yes.
Dingo got hurt. And you
Yeah.
said there's a Necro Eugene story, so I need to hear this. And I can't a 64-man tournament.
That's your boy. No, so when IWA comes back on that show, um Dingo came out with his neck brace and he had the neck injury, so he, had to vacate the title and everything. And all right, cool. And at this point too, if you remember, the tag team titles have disappeared since 2008. The women's title disappeared since 2008. The Oh God, there was like a some kind not I don't know if there was an extreme title,
There
but there
was like
was
a
like
strong, like I'm looking at some of the
strong
strong
style
style
title
title, and
just gone.
like what the hell?
So we're down to two titles, and Ian, who, again, like just how convoluted it would be to independently, like it's different when you're Tony Khan and you have people under contracts and you have the money to bring someone in from Mexico on 2 days' notice, like
Right,
three
right.
grand for a flight, that's fine. But like this is Ian Rotten budget, and he wants to book 64 fucking guys for a tournament.
Oh my gosh.
How long is this going to take? How many times is someone going to not make the booking and then they're replaced in the
Right.
tournament? It's
Well, and
like
like and when we had Jimmy Jacobs on, a best of seven series between Jimmy Jacobs and Alex Shelley took like a year to do
Jesus.
by the time he
Yeah.
got in, and it took like doing three in one show. Just it still ended up taking like 6 7 months to fucking do. So like, how in the hell is he going to do this? Is he just going to call everybody back from that first tryout show and okay, there's 46 of the entrants right
Basically.
there, you know?
And I'm trying to talk him out of this. So at this point, he contacted Sal Tomaselli and I, and actually was like, "All right, help me book." And I'm like, "Awesome, finally happening." And he's like, I got these matches." And he'd already have like the top five matches booked. So then at that point, it's like, you know, my job was to decide what Matt Cage and Donnie Pepper Cricket are gonna do. And it's like I love these guys, but like at no point do I actually have any power. Like I'm just working with what would be Ian's leftovers. Um, he
Right.
did push he did push ahead with this tournament in a way. I see
Oh God.
three matches. I got Drake Younger beat Prince Ali. So that's fantastic. Prince Mustafa
It's
Ali, who's a great wrestler, out in the first freaking
out in the first
round.
round of a 64-man tournament.
Exactly. Dixieland Destroyer beat Sal Tomaselli, and I know that was Sal being like, "Well, I don't want to push myself." And if you look through any of these results, like Sal's never pushed. He's just there to put other people over and try to add to stuff. Which again, we had
Well,
super
then he
minimal
doesn't know how to
say.
book then, because that's never how it's been done.
Yeah,
Don't tell Jerry Lawler that. Don't tell Ian that. Well,
but so the first match happens down in good old Litchfield, Illinois, and it's Necro versus Eugene. And I know this was just without him saying it, I know this is an Ian test. He goes, "Hey, kiddo, you go tell Eugene when the match is, and he's going under to Necro by submission." And I'm like, "Awesome. I have no rapport, history, relationship at all with Eugene, who's coming off of WWE and everything." So I probably did it my best ways. Like what I've been told is this is the finish. And God bless Eugene Nick Dinsmore for being very like, okay, hey, no problem. Like that's what we'll do. And he loses the Necro, but Asiatic Spike and everything. Did as asked, but I knew that was a test from the boss if I want to be a booker. But you got to go do these things, but you also don't have any say in what was originally decided on situation.
Yeah, it's amazing. Like with my run, there was so many times I wanted to be given more power in like
Mm-hmm.
in those kind of situations, and
Yeah,
like was never given the opportunity. And
right.
then, but then like when he would go elsewhere and I'd have to run the show, then he'd want me to go tell Bobby Eaton that he's getting fined for being drunk and you're not paying him
Great.
his full payday. And I'm like,
Yeah.
what the fuck, that's what you give me? And then I've got Jamie Dundee and Bobby Eaton like threatening to kill me in the fucking Clarksville building
Yeah.
because you've booked 18,000 people on a show that when you're not even there and don't have enough money to go around. And okay, well, for the first time ever, we're going to find somebody for being too drunk,
Right.
uh, you know, on a show. Like Tommy Rich would have been working for free every damn IWA show he did in the Kmart building.
Yeah.
Uh, a lot of the
Eh,
guys would have been working for free if that was the damn rule. And
Yeah.
it's like, okay, sure, yeah, I'll do it. And so but it wouldn't get me any more say on what you like. His big thing with me, I'd come up with an idea and he'd go, it's a good idea. I'm not going to do it, but that's a good idea.
I
And
know this
then
one.
3 weeks later he does it and passes it off as his own idea and is like, okay, what the fuck ever. You know, um, it's like one of the only times he ever like in the moment listened to me, and I can't even was like we ended up doing might have been Suicide Kid. It might have been the Suicide Kid, and we did like the Minnesota Wrecking Crew uh knee off the top with holding the arm
Hmm.
out and
Yeah.
that to like explain kids shoulder injury or something. It was like something like that was the only thing that he ever used in the moment. And anything else it was always, oh yeah, that's a good idea, not going to use it, but that's a good idea, and then end up using it later and be like,
Yeah.
it's like
And
whatever.
and to be clear, and I think I'd speak for you too on this. It's like for everyone out there watching, it's like we don't think we're gonna get carte blanche here. Like we don't think we're gonna decide every single person that's
Right,
on in every single match. Like at the end of the day, Ian's paying him. Like we just want to run our ideas by him and be involved in the process to come up with these ideas to try to make things better, not only for the fans, but for the wrestlers, for the guys that are traveling in from, Wisconsin and Kentucky and Pittsburgh and all this stuff.
right,
Try to pay off for them so they actually feel appreciated.
right.
We
instead of
want him,
instead of
we
being in
want
a
him to check off on it.
instead of being in a 14-man scramble where
Yeah.
you're going to get to do three moves and have 20 seconds of action for that 8-hour one-way drive you
Yeah.
just took here. How about we come up with something that makes at least benefits them in some way? Because at the end of the night you're just going to tell them, sorry, you got no guarantee, so here's
Mm-hmm.
your handshake if I even bother with the handshake. And and if there's a
And the
hot
old
dog
hot dog.
left, if there's a hot dog
Yeah.
left, help yourself to one. And
Mm-hmm.
like
But yeah, it
just
was it was crazy. Like he'd have again, he had like more than half the show already put together, and it's like just throw together the rest. Like for what? It was rough because I had ideas. Like if anyone remembers that era of IWA, like I didn't want to do a whole, definitely not a 64 man tournament. I wanted something small, maybe a one night thing that would end with like I wanted to have Jason Strife come in and kill this yellow dog thing, take off the mask, like, oh, it's him, and be like really vicious and actually treat Classy Lassie like rudely. So there at least there's sympathy on her so she's still out there, and you get that experience of her being there, but she's undermined by him and treated poorly. So there's heat on him for it. And I wanted to have like him and Drake Younger be the finale of it, but with Strife up and go from there. That was my hope, not a 64-man tournament with Eugene tapping out right away.
Right. And Ali losing in the first round,
Yes,
Yeah.
Ali, come on. He's in Chicago. Why would you write him out? He's there and he's amazing.
Why ask why? So is
Right.
that what led to you deciding you had enough and not sticking around, or was there another we're done and we're stopping doing shows?
There was a few at that there's a few show. I didn't count how many there were, but I just remember there was like one, it was a trio of Bellevue shows. They were like, there was one show and then a double shot. And basically each show I got paid like 1/3 of what I would get. So out of three shows overall, I got paid for one show, with the get you next time kiddo, which again, I'm not like delusional. I know what that means, but that was my, just kind of my, putting up my boundary thing. I don't ever remember a point where I told him I wasn't showing up. I think a lot of people have experienced this, where you never work for IWA Mid South until you're fired by them. Um, and I don't remember a point where I was fired either, but just at some point, because of the money, like I tapped out. Um, but yeah, before that, the one booking thing that I was really proud of, again, it's more for the people who have been watching IWA, was near the end there when Ryan Phoenix won the light heavyweight title. And Ryan is a nice guy, but it was not because of friendships. He worked super hard. He was probably the most over person we had in Bellevue because he was from Bellevue.
Yeah, he was very like he was we had found like where I had drove down to Louisville
Mm-hmm.
like the week before the last show, and
Yeah.
I had, because we were gonna set up, it was loser leave, I quit, any stipulation we could throw on it that would help make the match go a little longer, me versus Jimmy on that anniversary show. And then I drove down to Louisville, and we cut promos with Mitch and Bull and Nick and me, and like they were gonna do, it was supposed to be like Mitch Bull, and then they were gonna get like either Corporal or Pondo or
Mm-hmm.
Cash, whatever, and then it was like a challenge to like Ryan Phoenix to find two people, like, and it was going to be old school versus new school, and we're gonna, Maniwa was going to start managing them to take over for me when
The heel, he'd manage the heels.
like he would manage the heel, he was, and it was like, these guys have been forgotten about and cast
Yeah.
aside, and you know this is how it's going to be. And so we cut all these promos and to start leading up to Ryan Phoenix being like probably like semi main event level
Yeah. Yeah.
on the show, because of how over he was getting at that point. And then, a week later, we're like, it's like, oh, well, I'm so glad that I made a trip down to Louisville and
Yeah.
got a hotel, and,
And
sure,
get the hopes up of all those
I
guys.
got to see my friends, but yeah, you get their hopes up that, oh, they've got a booking and they're going to do the show. And because I wanted them involved in my last night kind of deal. I wanted them there, and it was going to be one of the few ways I was going to get my way and be able to do some things that I wanted on the way out. And
Yeah.
and then he turns around, okay, well, just cancel that show, we're done, I'm not running anymore. And it's like, well, motherfucker, and he had, and it wasn't even like he was talking about that at that point, wasn't
Mm-hmm.
even like, it just came out of the blue of, oh, I'm done. And it's like, okay, well, so am
Yeah.
I. Goodbye. Um,
uh, I want to
it's
say the Phoenix thing. So again, the midst of this 64-man tournament. All those other titles we're talking about gone. So we literally only have the lightweight title. And Jason Hades is the champ and he's a heel. So Ian did come up. He's like, we're gonna have this big scramble match that Ryan Phoenix is gonna win, and Ryan's gonna then win the title later that night. This is all in Bellevue. But he says it's like slip on a banana peel finish. And again, I just like this is where I just kind of put my foot down as much as I could. I was like, Ian, you have no other titles. This is the only one. Ryan is super over. People like him here. We have the talent to like give him good matches too. Like if you're gonna go through this process and put the belt on him, at least make it a big moment. Like let him beat the freaking guy. So
Right.
he went with it. He let him beat the guy. And again, I can come up with all of us can come up with any idea in wrestling. But at the end of the day, if it succeeds, you have to give the wrestlers credit. And I do that to this day. I'll have ideas, but like if it's good, they get the credit. And Ryan and Hades worked their asses off in this match. They had the clean finish, and that crowd erupted. I swear there were people crying, not just women, but grown ass men crying in joy that Ryan Phoenix won this title in front of them. You know, so I was really glad to be a part of that. That was worth putting your foot down type thing.
Yeah. And then you probably should have wrote off into the George
Just
Costanza
go, just
leave
leave.
on a high note at that point. That should have been when
Goodbye,
he got
Jim.
out. Yep,
Yeah.
right there. Just leave on a high note. All right, we're out of here. The
And
jerk
again,
store
this might
called and they're all out of you.
and yeah, it's just, these are just a footnote in history, but this is for the IWA Mid South fans, and I'm sure a lot of the boys are going to watch this stuff too. That's how I know about it. Um, as I you have your POV as far as it is with me and Ian. I really don't have any ill feelings with them. There was the money situation, but it's like I'm freaking surviving. I'm wearing my shirt for an event that doesn't exist. I'm in this
Right.
house, like I'm doing okay. So
Yeah.
I have no like real, despite everything that went down, Ian, if you're watching, I have no ill will towards you. I hope great things. But yeah, that was about the wrap of the IWA situation, and I have no ill feelings with you, Jim. This has been
Well,
awesome,
I'm
man.
glad because like I said, once I started to get the thoughts of coming back, I was like, there's a lot of people I owe apologies to for what I did back in the day, and it's a chance to try to rewrite history and change the narrative a little bit and maybe change my legacy along the way. So I'm glad that you came on here and joined me. Do you have anything to hype? I heard that you're still doing a lot of work around the business and doing like
Mm-hmm.
filming and production work. So anything that you want to hype that's coming up, or how people can hire you to do this work? And
Well, like I said, my email, Michael Z at gmail.com. I am that also on Twitter/X, on Instagram, which I don't post because I'm not photogenic at all. It's Michael Z E or the Michael Z E E. Michael Z E E, also on good old Facebook. I'm working a lot with Josh Raymond right now for Independence Pro Wrestling in Western Michigan. So that's always fun. I love
okay.
working. It's kind of occasional, but I work with XICW
is
Detroit.
is
You can,
Josh still wrestling, or is he just doing?
yeah, he's
Okay,
wrestling. He's got his own training school. He runs the
cool.
events. Lets me get in there as well on both sides. So we've mentored a lot of younger people, and being able to bring in different guys. We just had Sage Phillips come in. He's awesome. Known him for a while. Uh, Again, XICW in Detroit, the longest running independent in Michigan's history, just reached 25 years
That's
back in
impressive.
October. Yep.
That's
You go
impressive.
to search XICW Detroit, especially on YouTube. There's a recent show that I got to do commentary on that. I was super happy with it. And my big one that I work very hand in hand with is Mr. Chainsaw Pro Wrestling, which is here on IWTV. We just did a live stream on May 16th. I do normally I ring announce and film. As I said, I'm filming and ring announcing right behind it. We Mikey Zero and I put together the entire show from top to bottom, work with the guys. And again, everything that they do, like every success is the credit of the wrestlers doing it. But we just did we did our own live stream. So I was not filming, I ring announced and did commentary for that. Um, and we had Darren McCarty from the Detroit Red Wings, 4-time Stanley Cup winner. We had Rohit Raju, who was in TNA. We had Zach Gowen. We had Jimmy Jacobs versus Jake Oman. That is definitely one to see. We had Suplex Shogun Jackson Stone, who had a brief stint in TNA, except they didn't realize how good he was, so they never fucking used him. But I was really proud of everyone on that. Jimmy Shawlin on the show too.
Still going. Wow.
Still going. 26 years, Jimmy Shawlin. The hype, babe. Believe it.
Yes.
But MCPW online, basically on all social media for Mr. Chainsaw. That is my number one. And I hope the IWTV people check us out too, especially this Battleground 2026 from May 16th. Please watch that. It's worth it. No small town BS.
Yep. So anybody that's watching this on IWTV right now, just as soon as this one ends, go to the on demand, and I guess they would probably just can search chainsaw and it probably come up.
Yeah. No, that's the beauty of IWTV. You know, you can type Fannin in there, and that's what I did. I not only got your podcast here, but the occasional matches you would have.
Yeah, just a couple. They don't have a lot of the IWA back in from my time. They got it all on physical media, but they never went digital with it. So, but there is a few, but yeah.
Any wrestler you're looking for, Gary J and Manders and all those guys, you can literally just put their name in and find it, or you can find the promotion as well.
Yeah, it's always a lot of great stuff there on IWTV. And I mean, last weekend my phone was dinging like seemed like every 5 minutes I was getting a live stream just started.
Yeah. Like, that was us, bro.
I was like, there's a ton of stuff going on IWTV. So if you're listening to this on YouTube or Spotify or iHeart, whatever, get your ass over to IWTV and sign up. Get to see our beautiful faces, the faces of radio that the two of us are. Get to look at us and get to see some. I'm sure Jeremy is going to pull some B-roll to save you from looking at our ugly faces, and then you can watch some of the matches that we talked about on here. But this is going to wrap up another edition of Fannin's Flashbacks. I'd like to thank Michael Z for joining me today. Remember to check out my YouTube channel at youtube.com/sportsfannin for IWA clips and matches and the audio to these podcasts. When you get to the YouTube channel, start by hitting subscribe, then look around, like some videos, leave some comments, get the usage up on there, and maybe pump me up in the algorithm a little bit. But more importantly, if you have a subscription to IWTV, Independent Wrestling TV, ran by Smart Mark Video, please go watch the podcasts there. The more views, the more little scratch I get, the more I can pay Jeremy to edit these things and get them done quicker. So it's win-win for everybody. Go watch them on IWTV and let them know they made the right choice by giving me the opportunity to put the podcast on there with the added clips of the matches and promos that we talk about. Prophet of Ash on Twitter, Jeremy, he puts a ton of time into editing these shows to get the proper footage to add. So make sure you tweet him and tell him thank you. Tell IWTV and Smart Mark Video thank you on Twitter. Go ahead and tag me on there too. Pump us all up in the algorithm.
Thank Nick Maniwa, just for the sake.
Yeah, and thank Nick Maniwa. He does a lot of the editing on the audio side of things and putting the podcast together. So a lot of help and a lot of people putting the work in to make this go. And if you are not subscribed to IWTV yet, please do so. It's cheaper than Netflix, and the wrestling is a hell of a lot better on IWTV. Most of the best indies in the world are on IWTV, and you can watch a ton of old IWA shows or the current promotions, their live streams, their entire video library on demand. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at jfannin73. My next show, by the time this airs, will be Friday night, June the 12th in Chicago for Bloodstone Wrestling. One half of the Rejects, John Wayne Murdoch, joins the Fannin family to take on Anakin Murphy with Davina Thorne. Very limited tickets left at nostalgiagland.com for that one. By the time this
Nostalgic land?
nostalgia,
Okay. It sounded like you said nostalgia gland.
yes, the
Oh,
word
it is.
nostalgia, yes, the word nostalgia, and then the word gland,
Like in your body, the
like in
gland.
your body gland,
Okay. All
G
right.
land. Yeah, it threw me off at first too, but nostalgia gland .com.
.com.
There's like 20 tickets left for that show. It might be standing room only by the time that this releases. So get those and come on out and watch me in Chicago as that checks off bucket list items of managing Murdoch and doing it close to home. So I'm going to have some co-workers from the shoot job there. By the time this airs, spoiler alert for you, Michael Z. But by the time that this airs, Connor Hopkins, Mickey Knuckles, and the Rejects are the current official members of the Fannin family, and Trick Davis.
No way. Creamy biceps.
And Trick Davis. So we are ready for bookings. So reach out and let's do business. And we'll see you next time on the next episode of Fannin's Flashbacks. So let it be written. So let it be done. Good day.